the trans athlete shit is going to do a lot to like foster a lot of really bad will against like trans people in general. I think it's a really good TERF argument for, well, look, these people just want to destroy women's spaces. Everybody else in the world can look and see that there is clearly a difference between physiologically men and women. You guys should know this on the left because we talk about rape culture all the time, and it's one of the big concerns that women has.
Go research the biology, then talk about the biology afterwards.
No,
Okay,
Sam.
hold on, no, wait. Why don't, yeah, please explain this to me so I can tell you how fucking stupid you are. Go ahead.
Who gives a fuck if women can't compete at the top level?
If it eliminates women's spaces from sports, keep in mind it'd be eliminating men's spaces from sports as well. And I have absolutely no issue with that.
I was poor, and my mom took me to McDonald's all the time because we were poor and we had no time, and she worked.
I don't know. Like I think your mom like dropped you on the floor a couple times in your head too. I don't know what else.
No. There's a bunch.
Like I don't know what else to say. Like go to a doctor, get a X-ray, figure out what's loose. Like
right. So should we have like a
the argument? Then don't make a ridiculous add-on.
It's not a ridiculous. It's that I can show you poor people that are not fat, and I can show you a lot of poor people that are fat, but I can't find you a single woman that can be competitive in like 95% of male sports. That's the difference. But you don't. I think
you're discounting all the female tennis players. The fact that gymnastics is almost entirely female. The fact.
Hold on, wait a second. You said female tennis players. Number two, women's sports were created to protect women.
It honestly just feels a lot more like conservatives in America don't have the ability to talk about sex stuff openly. So any excuse they can grab onto to like have that as an outlet, they would probably gravitate towards, or they're like so mad against it as well too they can't help but talk about it.
I'm glad you said that, Brento, because I think that I disagree with you, Brento, but I think we have to be honest on the left side that I think part of the reason actually why conservatives and right-leaning people tend to go to this argument over other arguments on trans issues is because I think this probably might be the best argument that conservative people have. Not to say that I agree or disagree with it, but when a lot of conservative positions on trans issues come down to like borderline we should harass trans people and like encourage their suicide by like misgendering them and stuff, something like this I think is much stronger than that. I think that's something we have to honestly grapple with.
What the fuck? Conservatives are out there pimping that we should harass trans people and root for their suicide? Are you fucking crazy?
Brother,
have you ever been to a conservative area?
Horse shit argument. I can't even believe you throw that kind of charge around here. Like, who are you talking to?
Liberals are like pretty fucking transphobic.
Like I don't make your arguments a little bit better rather than calling names.
That are rooting for trans people to commit suicide.
There's two things.
So what's happening in Texas right now?
Most of the people are
grab your microphone.
Really quick, hold on just a second. So really quick, the people most likely to root for trans suicide are going to be the more right-leaning people on average, right? That's not like a hot take.
Who is rooting for people to commit suicide? Okay. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Debate board, if you want to make the case, hold on. Debate board, if you want to make the case that the people that are doing this are like a vocal minority and you denounce those people, we can totally have that argument. But in the same way that I can admit there are like some crazies on the left that are like super anti-Semitic, but say not all the left is anti-Semitic, you need to be willing to say that like if you're on the internet and someone's making a 43% joke, like a betting man is going to say that person's probably on the right.
That 43% jokes don't exist. You made that up. It's a liberal lie.
This is gross.
Well, like 13% of the population.
No. You need to engage with that.
There's probably honest arguments on both sides. We probably don't have to strawman the ever-living fuck out of like.
Everybody shut up.
Who said all conservatives?
Echo chamber. Come on now.
Well, like, why even bring up the most extreme arguments? I don't think anybody agrees.
Because they're being made.
Who on this panel is making? Wait. Who on this panel is making the argument that like all trans people should commit suicide?
Somebody on this panel is making the argument that nobody makes that argument.
Wait, why would we talk about the types of arguments that some people on the internet make? Why not just like
because they're permeant in society? Because these arguments, if somebody's making them, it's the case that there's at least some.
This is why. This is why you guys suck shit.
Only argument that the people have.
Destiny, go ahead.
It's such a dog shit conversation. Like, why not actually talk about the topic rather than finding the most strawman, ridiculous, stupid, like troll versions of arguments online?
Nobody's being strawman.
Screaming about that. It's a dumb argument. Nobody here thinks that.
nobody
killing themselves. Like a lot of conservatives would probably say, like, yeah, you shouldn't tell trans people to kill themselves. So why have?
So somebody's saying that the issue,
that's
Destiny, is not
even,
nobody's.
like, that's not
Nobody
even
on the panel so far. I don't think anybody on the panel said that all conservatives think this. The issue is somebody who's a conservative on the panel said that no conservatives think this.
Well, hold on,
That's the real issue.
hold on, stop! Don't strawman him. I doubt he said that no conservative thinks this. He's probably saying.
Yes, he did. He verbatim said that. You better run it back. Debate board did. Debate board did. You run the VOD back and then like figure out your position
Hey,
first.
I'm gonna hold on. Let's use our brains a little bit. My guess is probably, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, that not all conservative people think this. If there are people saying this online, yeah, they're probably more likely to be conservative. But the mainstream conservative argument is not that all trans people should go commit suicide.
Nobody said that it was.
Then why talk about it?
You could go run the VOD and just listen. Debate board. No, it's not the case. The debate board said that like there is not all conservative or something who said this. Debate board made the claim that nobody is doing this. When somebody mentioned there are some people making 43% jokes, debate board said no, nobody's doing this. He pushed really hard against this.
Let's hear from
floating hyperbolic, but that's what you said verbatim.
I just don't know why you would wait.
You can't tell me you never hear.
Just give him some slack. It's absurd. It's an absurd caricature that you guys do with each other as you circle jerk in your little panel here, your little echo chamber here, and nod your heads and root with one another on it. And it's bullshit.
Her little open.
Oh God, guys, we got an intellectual. We got an intellectual.
Let him finish. Debate board, go ahead, please.
That says something stupid, and now you say, "Oh yeah, and conservatives most likely are going to root for trans people, to commit suicide." They don't really have an argument here, and this is the only thing they bring up because, otherwise they just want trans people to commit suicide. That's how you guys are talking, and it's absolutely
nobody said any of that.
Nobody said that.
It's funny. It's funny. We're the ones being accused of strawmanning, but debate board just came in and strawmanned every single person left of him on the panel. Debate board, can I ask you really quick? Debate board. Do you think it's the case, just an olive branch, just so we know your position, do you think it's the case that there are no conservatives whatsoever making trans suicide jokes, pushing trans people to suicide, or telling trans people they should commit suicide? None of them. 0%.
I don't know. I literally.
The answer is yes. There are people doing that. Come on, debate board.
Yeah, it's proven.
Everyone's seen it. Anyone who's been in any transphobic space for like more than 3 seconds.
I'm not terminating online. I don't know the.
I've seen it in real life.
I don't know. You spend a lot of time in this Twitch channel, man.
Have you never seen trans harassment in real life? Do you have no clue what it looks like?
Yeah, maybe there is some idiot conservative out there, or idiot right-wing person, or just general idiot who has said something stupid about trans people. However, conservatives talking about trans women competing in sports against other women, they're not making the argument because they just can't figure out any other argument. Oh my goodness, we just last week we were talking about trans women, and we were talking on Prime's panel, and there were conservatives on the panel, or right-leaning people on the panel, talking about hormone blockers and pediatric trans surgery. So what do you mean conservatives?
Oh, the thing that doesn't happen.
Right. Come on.
You love bringing that up. You love it.
Debate board, if I can re-clarify my position, I've originally brought it up, and I can apologize if you felt like I mischaracterized conservatives. The point that I was trying to originally make is that I think part of the reason why conservative talking points on transgender issues oftentimes make their way to the issue of trans women in sports is that I think that argument, even though I disagree with it, is frankly a lot better than a lot of the other arguments or typical points that get bandied about by conservatives. And I think that if you look at those points, you can make a fair enough assessment that not only are a decent number of these, shall we say, transphobic, and we could say that not all conservatives are transphobic, certainly not all of them want suicide, that a lot of these arguments are probably going to lead to a world where there's probably more trans suicide. When we talk about like dead naming people or giving them health care, these are a lot harder arguments for conservatives to win because there's a lot more empirical data where it says these things help save trans people from committing suicide. And that's not necessarily the case with trans sports. That's all.
Rather than like hyper fixating on trying to figure out like what the motivation is for an argument or something, why not just like dismantle the actual argument? And then if you think that somebody's being transphobic, call out the transphobic.
Like Prime moved the topic here.
It's because we were
talking about. We're literally having a discussion here, and your one response is, "How about you guys just dismantle the argument?" Like, do you realize how
you should, but
because the second I came in, you guys are saying shit like conservatives want trans people to kill themselves, and then you guys got into like this weird side.
Okay, we're having a non-conversation right now. My line of logic here. Let me walk you through my line of logic here. Is there going to be a predominance on which side of the political aisle for people who want trans people, or are more in favor or more likely to be transphobic and more likely lead to these consequences? And if so, which side is it?
Who cares?
Come on.
The reason we
answer
were
the question.
talking about this is we were looping.
Answer the question, Steve.
Well, it's probably going to be conservatives are more likely to be anti-trans, but what does that have to do
Bingo!
with...
There he is. He said it. He got it out.
Wait,
So,
what? Wait, do
who's
you think
more
it's like a
likely to make
concession?
the
Like,
arguments? Who's more likely to make the arguments on behalf of trans suicidality? Who's more likely to crack the 43% jokes?
I don't even know it, but my guess would probably be conservatives.
Yeah, you do know. Like, we can list numerous examples.
Ellen, we already know this.
What is the point of this conversation?
Yeah, what's the point? Yeah, of course I know this. Like, who's more likely to, like, say that, like, there's a million things that we could characterize from either political side. I don't know how that gets us any further in the conversation topic.
Okay, enough.
We're just taking pod shots.
Let's get back to
just dismantle the argument.
Substantial discussion.
We're doing that. We're talking about the issue. It's all encompassing.
We're not really talking about the issue. We're just
not
like,
I don't think it's crazy to say.
You're trying to hand wave what could be like legitimate criticism over a topic by just screaming transphobe to everybody.
No, nobody's done that. No, we talked about we talked in depth about the topic.
Shitty Twitter post earlier today, so we could talk about that too, which is basically this.
You mean every Twitter post?
Specifically, Destiny.
You're on board. Just catch up a little.
Hold on, no,
Destiny,
this is really important context. We had been having a discussion. We were about to move the discussion. Prime Cayes wanted to stay on the general discussion, but he specifically wanted to talk about why this discussion was so pervasive. So we were giving reasons why it was culturally pervasive. That's why we were talking about people's attitudes towards the topic. It was incredibly relevant to the conversation we were having. Coming in and saying, like, this massive straw man that all conservatives want, blah, blah, blah. No, we were just saying that there are conservatives who are transphobic, and this is a problem.
Okay.
No, but you went far.
If that was what was said, if that only what was said, that would be great. But that wasn't the case at all. Instead, what we heard was that this absurd caricature that conservatives, there was no qualification, conservatives want to see more trans suicides or root for more trans people to commit suicide. It's an absurd caricature, and you guys focus. There are
absolutely these people. Have you never seen trans harassment in the real world? What are you talking about?
There's women harassment, there's male harassment, there's harassment.
God damn, I must be meeting a caricature every day.
What? Do you not think harassment's a problem? I agree, but you don't think that
conservatives the way that Flo did?
But there are conservatives who are harassing trans people by telling them to kill themselves, by circle jerking their transphobic friends, by saying, "I hope they all fucking kill themselves." This is a self-solving problem, right? How often do you hear that? It's a self-solving problem.
Even if we don't apply intent, right? Like, which party is putting policies that will emotionally and economically and maybe even physically damage trans individuals? Like, which side of the aisle is actually putting that forward? We don't take
right now, it seems like both of them. Right now, both of them kind of are. I think that the trans athlete stuff. I think the trans athlete shit is going to do a lot to like foster a lot of really bad will against like trans people in general. I think it's a really good TERF argument for, well, look, these people just want to destroy women's spaces. Because for the athletic arguments, it's kind of true. So I think in that sense, I think it's a pretty harmful thing.
But that's not directly meant to hurt trans people. It's meant to be the exact opposite.
Dr. K, go ahead, please. I want to hear what you have to say.
All right. Yeah, like that. The stuff about the trans people in sports, like any bill, there's not a single Democrat bill that is maliciously built with the intent to hurt trans people, right? Whereas across this country, in Florida, in Texas, in so many states, there's stuff meant explicitly to make the life and existence of being trans harder. This is not.
Sure, and that's bad.
This isn't hard,
but the drive for more inclusiveness for trans people in women's sports is all coming from the left.
But it's not. It's not being driven by militia. Even if
it doesn't matter if it's being driven. Hold on, it doesn't matter if it's being driven by malice.
Can I please talk? It's my turn to talk, Stephen. Thank you. So one, it's not being driven by maliciousness, right? One, which is what we're talking about, and two, right, is that it's like. It's even accepting that it is meant to hurt them, right? Stephen, come on. Steven.
Okay, whether or not something is driven by malice is not relevant. That's like a first grader's analysis of like legislation. That's like saying if we look at look at voter ID laws.
That's what we're talking about.
So it's not malicious.
Okay, that's what we're talking about. Is if one party is actively transphobic, and it is.
Yeah, I got a question for you. How would you feel if we were like 80 years ago and you made this argument about like Jesse Owen? Okay, black people are just stronger than white people. It wouldn't be fair if Jesse Owen competed in the Olympics. I mean, come on.
I don't know if there's.
I have a question for Destiny.
Black people are just stronger. Do you think that the differences between black and white people are as pronounced as the differences between women and men? Do you really think?
Come on.
Look, no, the argument isn't about women and men, right?
The same arguments that are being made.
The argument is about
people
women and
were
women.
made towards black people long ago.
And the same arguments about the Earth being flat were made about the Earth being round. That doesn't mean that both are wrong. Like, there are differences between men and women. That doesn't mean that there had to have been differences between black people and white people. Do you think that 100 years from now we're all going to be enlightened and we're going to realize that men and women are the same?
That they're on average taller? Like, come on. African American individuals are on average taller than white males.
If you're going to compare African American, you're probably going to go to different ethnicities, and then you're going to compare that with different ethnicities of white people, right? Because the tallest people in the world, I'm pretty sure, are people from the Netherlands who are white. So that doesn't even make sense as an argument.
Destiny, I have a question for you.
And we're talking about an American-centric issue here, so why should we let Jesse Owens?
But sports aren't limited to.
Do you understand how deranged you guys sound when you do it?
There's nothing
everybody else in the world can look and see that there is clearly a difference between physiologically men and women. You guys should know this on the left because you talk about rape culture and shit all the time, and it's one of the big concerns that women has. But then as soon as like trans athletes come up, you lose your fucking mind.
Nobody's disagreed with that claim. What are you talking about?
Why are you comparing black people and white people and saying that's the same as comparing women and men?
Instead of saying
just keep getting introduced, Destiny. Everybody's agreeing that there's a difference, like generally speaking, between men and women on the physical side.
Yeah, I just take an issue with
I don't know what the
contrarian arguments here.
What argument is contrarian?
80 years ago to Jesse Owens.
It was a side tangent.
I don't understand why you think that. Yeah, I don't know the black. Like that would have been a bad argument then. But if somebody wanted to say back then black and white people might be susceptible to different types of diseases based on genetics, I mean that would have been true, I guess. If we talk about like sickle cell anemia or something.
It's fine. Prime, recenter us, please.
Yeah.
I would love to point something notably out. Transphobic, and I think that that's inarguable.
What's transphobic?
Well, y'all are expanding like what. Y'all are like drastically expanding what was said. What was said was that a typical argument from conservatives is that trans people want to kill themselves, and that was what the issue with. But then to back that up, you all changed it to, well, which party is more against trans people? Which party is passing bills? And that wasn't the part. That wasn't the issue of the statement that was made. The statement was that a typical argument by from conservatives is that trans people want to kill themselves.
Isn't it pretty?
That's the part that's ridiculous.
And who said it was a typical argument? Nobody said it was a typical argument.
Yes, that's exactly what Fotre said.
No, there's just an enormous.
Fotre, did you ever say the words typical argument?
I don't think.
Or did you just say that the conservatives would do this, right?
I think just clarify to you, Vanilla T. The argument I was just trying to make was that I think that the reason why conservatives tend to go to trans people in sports is because that argument is a lot stronger than their other arguments, which oftentimes have implications on the suicide of trans people, and that can be something that's very difficult for
that's not what you
people
said
to confront.
The first
because
time.
well then I misspoke, and I legitimately apologize, and I'm trying to clarify this right now. It's legitimately hard for me to talk, and it's a big panel. So that's the argument I'm trying to make, is that other conservative arguments have a lot bigger implication in terms of the suicide rate of trans people compared to the trans people in sports argument, and that is one reason why I think they go to that argument more, because frankly it is a stronger argument for them to make. The reason we were talking about why people make the arguments as opposed to the arguments themselves, I think if we're being honest, is because we all agreed with each other, because we were all lefties and we were just looping.
Yes.
Okay.
Destiny, are you caught up now?
Yeah.
I don't think. I just don't think it's unfair to call out. Like it seems weird that we wouldn't call out the other party for that behavior. I mean, we don't have to focus on that, but like it's when we see others like basing their political platform, right? Like fucking Abbott, right, in Texas, as Dr. K was trying to get to previously, right? Like thinking that he's going to save himself by showing his conservative bona fides. How does he plan on doing that? He plans on hurting trans kids. That's what he does. Right? Like this appeals to the base, right? Like it's just a thing. So we can pretend that's not the case, right? It seems like it gets some people butt hurt when you like mention like the obvious fact, but it is what it is. But beyond that,
it is what it is.
We can.
I think I think it hurts your side when people jump to like labeling like transphobe and like we're so past like people on the left just using like racist, Nazi, fascist, transphobe, homophobic like for every single thing that I think it's better to just like take apart like when people say shitty or bad things, just address that.
Okay, so
I think that when you're
I think the Conservative Party is transphobic.
No. Do you think that like when you address the arguments that a conservative has, that understanding the motivations for why they're making those arguments is ever important for doing that?
Yeah, but I don't think very few of you understand the motivation. Like, here's a question.
Well, you don't understand what was going on the panel when you jumped in, so I think understanding here is coming from you.
The question for the panel was
Let's
why
review
why
the
they feel that way.
motivations.
Yeah, do you guys think the vast majority of conservatives like actually hate trans people, like want them to go away because of some amount of malice or whatever?
In an explicit way, no.
No.
You guys just
implicitly
talking about that.
I don't.
Implicitly yes. Explicitly no. And
depends on the faction.
In the otherization that they purvey upon trans people in society. Which party is more prone to other trans people in society?
More prone to?
What does that even mean?
Well, yeah, what does he mean by that?
We all kind of know what he means. Like he means like which one supports trans people? Which supports trans people more?
Conservatives or Republicans or whatever are more prone in their rhetoric to direct malice or anger or frustration or blame societal issues on
fear,
trans people.
anger.
Yeah, yeah, probably, yeah.
It just seems like if we.
That's it.
So it's an easy no-brainer. Yes, of course, the conservatives or Republican Party are going to be the ones that tend to be much more transphobic. And yeah, you know what? Some of them say some pretty fucking heinous shit. I don't know that all of them do, but I've heard them say some fucking horrible, horrendous ass shit.
So to answer your question, Destiny, you're saying do most conservatives feel this way? Well, I'm not exactly sure exactly what they feel. I know how they vote. I know what arguments seem to appeal to them. Right? I know what their politicians seem to think appeals to them because they keep hitting these same points over and over again. Right? They keep using the same, and they're not like these politicians aren't punished. It's not like the voters are going, "Hey, now," right? Republican voters going, "Hey, knock it off with the trans stuff." Right? We don't want to hear any of that. Let's get back to the economic issues that are actually affecting our lives. That doesn't happen. Right? So I have no idea what's going on in the minds of individual conservatives, but I can see the end result. And if you're saying take the time and demolish argument, well, we can do that, and we can try to do that again. But the problem is, as you understand, if there's a bad faith actor who just doesn't like a group, well, then your arguments are going to fall on deaf ears, right? So I think it's just
right. Why would you bring us to a conversation about the motivations if you don't care about the motivations and only care about the consequences?
Are you seriously asking me? Or are you joking?
He just said it.
Yeah,
it was a fair question.
This sounds like circular reasoning here.
That I don't.
So, Prime, just a minute ago, you attempted to presume what Abbott's motivations were for this current trans law down in Texas, that he's trying to demonstrate or reveal his bona fides to conservatives, that he's trying to save his political ass by engaging in this kind of policy making. And yet what you just did was imputed a bad faith to him. And then you'll say, well, he's a bad faith actor. So we have to look at motivations, because if we have a bad faith actor, then
I didn't say that we couldn't look at motivations. I'm sorry.
Right?
Did you think that's what I said? Was it phenomics? What was your point?
I got to clarify. I got it. I understand. I understand. Prime asked about motivations, even though he didn't really care about them. Maybe he was just interested in what we wanted to talk about.
Did I say that I didn't care about motivations? I said I didn't know what their motivations were. Phenomics, what did you ask me? I didn't realize that was a serious question.
No, from what you were talking about, you made it sound like you don't care about their motivations. It sounded like you were responding by saying, even if their motivations aren't to be bad to trans people, their actions are bad to trans people. I think that the better argument that we should be talking about is that the implicit bias that suggests, not the not the consequences are bad. When that doesn't really have we obviously that's a reason to care about the motivations, but you never brought it back to the reason about the motivations. It felt more like you were trying to deflect so you didn't have to defend the motivations, which you're probably not as comfortable in. But I would really wish we would talk about that so that we could actually get to the root of the issue.
Why would I defend their motivations? I don't understand. I'm on the side of I'm against.
No, I'm saying that defend your interpretation of their motivations and make sure that it's not what Destiny thinks it is, which is some massive straw man of that they all hate trans people, right? We want to actually get to it so that Destiny doesn't go and tell his massive stream of people that we're all circle jerking about stupid shit right now.
Oh, come on.
No, he's going to do that.
Be fair with
anyways.
Destiny. We brought Destiny up.
Dead, so we can actually get trans rights in his audience, right? So that we can actually get that, so we can stop being stupid right now.
Well, it'd be great if Prime and others would substantiate what they think are the motivations of folks like, say, Governor Abbott. You guys seem to spend so much time imputing and presuming motivations, and then you guys use words like pretend, like the other side is pretending to care, as you smear them as bad faith actors with illegitimate or uncredible arguments. And I think Destiny's point was getting to, why waste your mental effort and energy and time on trying to impute false motives to folks simply to scrape them away? You guys just avoid dealing with the actual arguments they're making.
Okay.
And
So
not all of us,
except that we haven't. That actually hasn't been the case. We actually have been tackling this directly. Right. So look, we can go back to if you guys are so uncomfortable with dealing the reality of how conservatives operate in the real world and the intentions behind that. That's okay, right? If it gives you the heebie-jeebies to talk about, sure, we can go back to the actual discussion itself, right? Like we were talking about changing the leagues, right? Like how we divide athletes, right? We could divide them on an axis other than sex, right? We can do that. If that's what you want to do, we can make that happen.
No, we
right?
kind of covered that.
Sorry, excuse me. Hold on.
What was the consensus on? What was the consensus on that? I'm so curious.
Yeah, I think there was. I'm not sure if there was a consensus, but we talked about. I was saying that indeed we should be able to divide other and axes other than sex, and that if we understand that there's biological advantages within sports, right? That's more than just sex, right? It follows on many other characteristics.
You're always going to have some sex differentiation, no?
Not necessarily. No.
Yeah.
Why?
Can somebody name one category where men and women are equal? It's not weight. It's not height.
Well, hold on. Just because they're going to cluster in different categories doesn't mean it's along sex lines, right?
Yeah.
Can you name one sport where women outperform men?
So Destiny, if the upper category, right? Let's say the upper league, whatever you want to call it, right? Mm-hmm. Is almost all men, then that's okay, right? If that's how it shakes out, then that's fine. And that league, the heavyweight league, whatever, right?
Yeah,
men
when you say
exist.
stuff like this, you justify the existence of TERFs. They were right. You do want to destroy women's spaces. That's what you're saying.
Hold on. First of all, I don't give a shit about
what.
Okay, hold on. Wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to explain that. Right. So you're essentially saying you want to eliminate women's sports in the professional world. That if the top echelon is all men, then that's okay, and then you have lower brackets that women somehow get into. Hopefully, if enough.
No, you can have like different weight classes that are all going to be like the top of their league, right?
Wait, no, you can't. A 120
Let's run through the categories again.
Wait, hold on. Wait. A 120-pound woman is not going to be competitive with a 120-pound man in any sport. That's why I'm at.
So that's right. So wait, no. That's not true because in like running, that is true.
Okay, besides extreme endurance sports.
Okay, but if we go on the other things, we don't have to use weight classes for everything. Weight classes can work for things like running, but we can also use endocrine classes for other sports. There's a variety of
the same. No, there's no variety. You have to at some point differentiate between sex, or else you're eliminating women from these sports.
What do you think? What do you think endocrine classes would be, Destiny? What do you think endocrinological sex is?
Like classifying people based on the current level of their hormone profiles or whatever?
No. You should go research the biology, then talk about the biology afterwards.
No,
okay,
Sam.
Hold on, no. Why don't please explain this to me so I can tell you how fucking stupid you are. Go ahead. Tell me what the profile is. You don't have a definition.
Endocrinological sex.
You're just about to get owned.
Endocrinological sex is not the case with endocrinological sex. It's based on the level of the hormones in the body. Endocrinological sex is based on the effects of those hormones.
How do you measure the effect of a hormone?
Are you serious?
Yes. So So I'm gonna take a man and a woman. I'm gonna take a man and a woman, and I'm gonna have both of them
answer your question.
Resistance training for 2 years. How do you measure the effects?
Do you want me to answer your questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
That's why I'm asking. I'm asking you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So we can measure the height. That's one effect hormone levels can have on a person. It could be the case that like the hormones make you grow taller or shorter. It could be the case that hormones make you have a certain proportion.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
How
go
wide
ahead.
are these ranges?
So instead of, because I know you want a verbal diarrhea, a whole bunch of nonsense bullshit.
No, you asked me. You asked me a question.
I'm giving you
information to answer your question.
So my request is let's go one thing at a time. Okay. So you're telling me So you're telling me that you can determine how much of a person's height was influenced by a hormone?
No.
So what did you just say? Repeat it back to me.
Sure. You can measure the influences. You can measure like the things that hormones influences, and endocrinological sex is the things that are influenced by the hormones.
Okay, but if I have a man that's 6 feet tall and a woman that's 6 feet tall, what does that tell me? What information do I get? That
tells you that one very small aspect of the overall field of endocrinological sex is going to be more masculine in this woman than it is on average.
Okay, all you're doing is in a very wordy way recreating both sex categories.
Yes.
No, no, not even close. Sex categories exist in endocrinological sex. That's one sex category. There's chromosomal sex, which wouldn't be the same as endocrinological sex. For example, if somebody has like De La Chapelle syndrome, they'd have female female chromosomal sex, but male endocrinological sex. It's not the case. They're the same as like normal sex categories.
So how would you determine how one's height is so if you have a 5'11" woman, how would you determine that's more of an endocrinological expression of sex rather than like a genetic expression of sex? How would you begin to determine that?
So all expressions of sex, I'm not sure what do you think a genetic expression of sex would be?
Well, let's see. Different genetics, I'm guessing, between men and women probably express different hormone profiles in different ways. And those hormone profiles will probably have an effect on some phenotypical things that you have in your life as well. Whether you're talking about bone density, whether you're talking about height, whether you're talking about VO capacity in your lungs, like these are going to be things that are ultimately expressed by the interplay between your hormone profile and your biology or whatever, right?
So the answer to your question is you don't tell the difference because all of them are endocrinological.
So what have you done? Can you give me an example of how you're using this to create a classification that doesn't just get us male and female at the end of the day?
Because you don't karyotype people when you want to put them in sports. Instead, you can take a look at the sex characteristics that the endocrine system produces, and then you compare trans athletes up in women's sports, and you can compare like trans man athletes up in men's sports.
Okay.
So long as they're able to fit those categories.
Give me an example of this.
An example of what?
Of what you just said.
Of this being done and operating
I
and
have
working
no
anyway.
idea how you would even begin. I don't think you understand how unbelievably complicated.
Hormones. Olympics right now are based on hormones.
That type of analysis is unbelievably crude and it's bullshit. So why would you even use that as an example? That's not some complicated endocrinology. That's just taking a reference range of hormones for 2 years and saying
the only analyses we can do are going to be abstractions. We can't ever do that. We can't find like a perfect level of how like meritocratically female and sex you are, and throw you in with like the perfect female sex range.
I agree. That's why it should just be male and female. You can't do just a hormone profile. So we got all the way back to the Olympic definition, which is what I said initially, that you were really excited to bring up, and now you're just saying it's a hormone profile. Okay.
No, degender it completely. Degender it completely. Who gives a fuck if women can't compete at the top level? If they can't do it,
that's essentially what the argument seems to be.
Who watches women's sports?
If a woman can rise to the top and end up in the
Who watches women's sports? It doesn't matter.
Maybe if we all get more things into the viewers' heads.
What is the heart of your objection, Destiny? What is are you saying that are you here protecting women's spaces? Is that your point? Or are you
I just think the arguments are dog shit. I don't give a fuck. I hate women, okay? I'm an incel.
Okay. Well, look, as long as...
But I think the arguments that, it doesn't matter or it's all arbitrary are bullshit. Like, a trans woman athlete has basically been, competing with performance-enhancing drugs flowing throughout their entire body for the better part of their existence, and then switches sexes, or however you would say it, via HRT, and is pretending to be on the same level now. That's absolute bullshit. It's not even remotely resembling reality.
It depends entirely on the sport.
It does. Okay. Okay. In case of Olympic power walking or massive endurance sports, fine. But for 98% of sports, it's incredibly relevant.
Well, no, it does depend on which sport we're talking about.
Make it too simple.
What's an example of that?
For Destiny, it is very complicated.
For example, in the stuff everyone's losing their shit over, the Leah Thomas example, the NCAA, which is the organization regulating this, says that you're good to go after a year. which Thomas met, and so she was good to go.
And
Sure, but that qualification though is bullshit. You can't train as a biological male for the most important athletic years of your life and then do 1 or 2 years of hormone therapy and say, "Oh, look, we're on the same level now." That's insane.
I mean, the NCAA seemed to say it was okay.
Trans women have.
I can actually speak specifically to this experience. So give me a second, damn it! I've been waiting.
An athlete.
Okay,
You did disc golf. You did disc golf. You're not an
Oh my god, you little memer! Just shut up.
Please talk.
Thank you. Okay. There is a difference when it comes to certain sports in the way that, like, as a male athlete would do something versus the way a female athlete in the same sport would do something. The technique is different. In a lot of sports, men are going to do something with more power, women are going to do something with more finesse. But that doesn't mean seriously, form can be different.
Are you saying that like the form of like male swimmers lacks finesse? This is just absolutely not true. Like finesse is going to exist in every single elite athlete male sport. I'm sorry.
Okay. What about
for example, gymnastics, I just don't get a chance.
Hold on. The wine moms are waiting.
Like the technique thing is like really specific, right? If I go to I'm going to go back to rock climbing on this one, which is now an Olympic sport, so just deal with it. When you look at pro women that climb at the same difficulty level as pro men, they do so in a different way. The men will do things that are more powerful and more dynamic, and the women do things that are more relevant on like footwork, technique, and balance. That's just how it works, okay? But my point here is that when you are used to training and you leaning on that strength, and then you lose all of that strength, you have to relearn everything to a degree. It was a very huge deal for me. When I lost all of my muscle mass from transition, I actually started getting massive injuries because I had these techniques that were built for working around all of this muscle that I had. That muscle was then gone, and I started hurting myself and had to start using different form, different techniques, and different strategies.
So could you still throw as far?
No. It took certainly not for like quite a while, and I still can't. I got close, but I had to massively relook and refine my form.
Well, but this doesn't really. It doesn't make too much sense because then essentially the men who were such more powerful, if they just add this finesse, then their distance and strength would increase also. So you would still have this gap.
No, they can't add the finesse. It's like Tiger Woods in golf. If he overbuffs it, then he starts slicing and hooking the ball, and you just can't do it in golf.
We're talking about rock climbing.
You're saying you get to a point where you're too strong to add finesse?
In golf.
You could just swing lighter.
Wait, no, that is actually... Do you think John Daly, when he was hitting the huge stuff with super high swing speeds, do you think that was finesse? Or was that power?
Yes, it's a combination of both.
I've had that swing speed.
I think the case is simply that if we care about sex as a differentiation between the sports for underlying reasons, that we can sort of create new classifications based on those literal underlying reasons. Even if that recreates the exact same sort of distribution of men and women, on the edges, the strongest women and the weakest men, there can be some crossover, and that is then going to be more accommodating to trans people.
You're not going to get society on board with recreating classifications.
Debate board.
Hold on, Destiny.
On debate board.
Change the subject.
Sorry, I didn't mean debate board. I'm sorry. I mean Vanilla Ice. You can go then Dylan Blay. Okay.
Yeah, so like Destiny asked for an example, and everyone's saying we can create these classes, but no one's given an example of what these classes would actually be. Because it seems like Synth was trying to get towards height and as the measurement, but if you put all the heights, if you made all the classes by height, you're still going to have the men dominate in each of those classes. If you make it by weight, you're still going to have the men dominate each of those classes. So what are these classes that you're saying that we can use to separate these people if we get rid of the gender?
I don't think it's by height. What do you get? How do you get them?
Look, this is a thing that This is something that already happens. Sully's going to be mad at me about talking about disc golf. I get it, but
not a sport.
Yeah, that's fine. In many sports, there are ways to take statistics on performance, right? If it's swimming, it's what's your time on like 100, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. you can use those results and average your performance at various competitions to come up with skill ratings. This is a thing they already do in the professional disc golf thing. And if you put 1,000 rated woman against 1,000 rated man, they're statistically going to have the equal chance of winning against each other.
Yeah, but wait, you're going
so
to create
I don't want to eliminate. I want to be clear. I don't want to eliminate the gender stuff, but there are ways to do it.
You're going to create a system then where no woman gets to 1,000. It's going to be all men at 1,000, and women are going to cluster at like 700 or 800.
We already have that system.
I'm just saying
now.
if there's a possibility. I'm just not. I'm not.
That's not a possibility. That's like saying elo in chess, where women have different elos, which I think they do. But when you compare them to men, they're just all lower. Like that's not a solution. That just gets us back to destroying women's sport.
You know what? The TERFs are right. I want to get rid of women's spaces in sports.
With women?
What?
Should trans women not be able to play chess with cis women then? Since there's an inherent advantage for men.
I'm just saying that in places where we've drawn a distinction between men and women sexually, it seems like we can't have somebody that changes sides in their 20s playing now for, well, it's really only talking about trans women because trans men will never be competitive with anything because everything we're saying is true, but nobody cares about men regardless. But like that just seems to be an issue where if we've drawn this distinction between men and women, you can't have people that can train as a biological male and then compete against biological women. It just doesn't seem to be fair in any sense of the word.
Let's go to Dylan.
Getting their muscles fucked.
Dylan Blay, and then we'll go
wait, why do you say after you're getting your muscles fucked? Imagine being a woman and having your muscles fucked your whole life. That's what being a woman is.
I want to talk now. It's
mate, have you ever taken this shit? You ever taken this? It does stuff.
Hold on. I'm sorry, not to be transphobic. Hold on. I'm sorry, but like.
Go ahead. No, finish your point, Destiny. Shut up.
Like, if you're a trans woman, you don't have periods. There's a whole lot of stuff that you don't have to deal with that women that actually compete and train and condition do have to deal with. Imagine being a man and just fucking slitting your wrist once a month and just bloodletting yourself in order to like, and then doing that and still training. There are going to be a lot of conditions that are revolving around women that are special to their training that aren't going to revolve around men. And when you say, well, when you take hormones, you're fucking your muscles over for a year, that means you got to train with advanced muscles for like 20 years, depending on when you transition. It's the worst argument ever.
Do you think?
I'm really curious about
okay, now we're going to deliberate and debate more.
Well, see, this is kind of the thing that I wanted to respond to because I think it speaks somewhat to Synth's point there. Like endocrinological profiles sort of more so speak to the deterministic factors of someone's capabilities in terms of their like physiognomy. So like I think that was an important point to be made because it's different like than an inherent difference based on like something that's completely different as opposed to like primary sexual characteristics like genitals, right? Like these are completely different things that don't really determine someone's abilities to compete on an athletic level, which is why I think that was a good point to be made there as opposed to just relating it to like sexual characteristics because there's so many ways to determine or like there's so many differentiations based on like sex lines, you know, that might surround something like primary sexual characteristics as opposed to like what Synth was talking about earlier, De La Chapelle syndrome, right? Where someone might have like an irregular chromosomal disorder would be deterministic of something else, right? So I think typically speaking, it's hormones that kind of have a bigger influence as opposed to having a PP or a vajayjay in terms of whether someone's going to be like actually physically capable or athletic in certain regards, right?
But
so
again,
that's a deterministic factor for certain parts of performance.
Again, no one has given us a class. No one's given the class that would give us the...
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, we did.
I
literally did.
Just say the class. If there is a class, just say it.
Weinman gave a performance-based class about averaging times. No one has given us an endocrine-based class that's going to give us this separation that we're looking for.
You want us to name it? You're just saying like pick names for the classes?
Yes. Name.
What is the trait?
Name and describe, Synth. Name and describe.
No, okay. That would be based on like endocrinological sex. That would be the description, and you can name it like Class A, Class B.
No,
what is it based on? What is Class A? What is Class B, Synth?
Sure. So Class A, we could do Class A. Could be how we could we could take a look at the median level of like testosterone in society or whatever.
Destiny said that, and you
make sure that it's been we can make sure it's this. Gee, please give me a fucking second here. We could do this yeah, it's not just based on testosterone levels. You let me finish my sentence. You don't understand what I'm saying. So we do it based on testosterone levels over a current period, like a long enough period of time, like maybe go 3 years or something. And if you take a look at the average trans woman after 2 years of hormones, it is the case that almost every single biological advantage that Destiny's talking about is completely gone. I have no idea what data you're using to get the idea, Destiny, that there's this massive biological advantage in like trans women after 2 years of hormones, because if you look at you mentioned periods earlier, I don't know why you think it's the case that like a cis woman athlete or something would have to not work out when she's on her period. There's no medical reason whatsoever for this. I think you just made that up.
I just fucking hate my life.
So
Good.
That was just the most. That was the most
make
male
that
fucking
obvious.
thing you've ever said in your entire life, bro. People miss fucking weigh-ins in their fucking MMA classes because they have a fucking period and it ruins their shit. Talk to a woman at one point in your entire fucking life and ask them how that might affect their. It can affect schooling. It can affect training. It can
Oh my
affect
god, I don't disagree. It doesn't affect schooling. Dude, you can work out when you're on your period. What are you talking about?
Working out when you're pushing yourself, when your sleep has to be perfect, when your diet has to be perfect, when your protein has to be perfect, and you just fucking lose a fuck ton of blood and your hormones are going crazy, that can fuck your training. Like when you are training,
a lot of women who are training don't even have
Destiny,
periods.
you're making good
Do you
points.
know
Just
that?
calm
A
down.
lot of women that are physically training very,
you can
very
take
hard
different
for
hormone
their
things to
shit,
not have periods.
they
That's
don't
possible.
have periods. No,
Sure.
it's not.
Yeah, it's almost
not
like
something they
females
take.
that complete at the
It
top,
happens
like
because
physical
of their body
threshold.
actually working.
Because
Serena
their body,
Williams
a
has
woman's
period.
body working will have period. What do you mean?
I mean, when they're working out, when they're training for these things, a lot of times there are situations where they miss periods or their menstrual cycle's off, or it goes off for quite a while. So yes,
If your menstrual cycle is going
possible that
off,
they
it's
are
because
having
they're-
a menstrual
cycle's more
cycle
fucking
while they're
lucky.
training for these things. It is possible. It's
If
very
your menstrual
possible.
cycle is off, it's because you're undergoing extreme stress, something is messing with your hormones, or you're taking some sort of like hormone blocking, period blocking, like birth control or something. It shouldn't happen normally under like.
Usually, yeah.
Do you think
Yeah,
training
yes.
for intense athletic events would not be considered stress on your body?
Yes, it could be, but it's not going to be the case that every single. Talk to women athletes. Do you guys know women athletes has a period?
Go talk
We
to
have
women
a woman
athletes,
athlete
Destiny.
here.
Go talk to women bodybuilders that are not
honestly,
using PEDs.
Destiny, talk to any
women bodybuilders.
athletes. Talk to any athletes.
So
Like, go outside of your
honestly,
house.
I want to hear before that. We
Can I
gotta
ask a
get
question
to.
really fast? Can I really quickly just ask one question? Destiny, when you said like during a period you lose a ton of blood, how much is a ton of blood?
Enough that it would probably affect your day. I don't know the measurements. I haven't put a fucking cup under my girlfriend's fucking vagina and tested
You don't lose. You lose about like 3 tablespoons. No, you don't lose enough to affect your day. That's ridiculous. You have no idea what you're talking about.
There are women that literally suffer like iron deficiency and shit because they don't get enough in their diet.
There are rare women who suffer iron deficiency, therefore the average woman's period is causing them to lose a ton of blood. Are you serious?
It's a part of what happens with the female body.
Don't focus on the ton of blood, Synth. It was just.
It was a ridiculous point.
If you want, you can Google like iron.
I'm going to press him on it.
Google
Destiny
periods,
is very
anemia, or
fascinated with
periods and
periods.
iron deficiency. Like, holy shit, what the fuck? It's with this.
You're saying there are rare women who have like iron deficiencies from like the blood loss during periods, and thus like
Also,
this is the
typically-
average period is losing a ton of blood.
Also, don't typically top female athletes have like, proper
Less blood, yeah.
vitamin deficiencies and things of that nature? Like, don't they tend to be in better physical shape than, like, I wouldn't say your average person who lives like a day-to-day normal life as opposed to professional athletes who compete at the top professional levels?
Let's
there'd
go
be a
to
big
debate board.
Oh no.
Oh yes. So somebody asked why we care about the sex division in sports, and there is a collective we here that cares because absent these protected divisions for women, there'd simply not be elite sports for women, and you would essentially erase women from international medal-based competition. That's why we respect the sex division. That's why we would prefer to maintain that sex division. All right. Secondly, somebody asked about trans men competing in chat quite a while ago, and why we rarely see trans men competing even close to natural born men. And back to Wine Mom 4's point earlier, the sense that performance advantages don't dissipate rapidly once you start suppressing testosterone. It's not a 1 year, it's not even a 2 year. And folks who were doing the early anecdotal observational studies for the NCAA have started to turn around their conclusions on this. And we're seeing that it's not even after 3 years that we're seeing a significant dissipation in this performance advantage when you start suppressing testosterone. And
source?
I dropped it into the regular chat.
No, he is correct about that.
So Wine Mom 4's point earlier about men transitioning to trans men and competing against women, and in some places that performance advantage dissipating. Well, it doesn't go the other way. Trans men cannot accrue.
Can you drop it in VC chat? It's going to get drowned out in any other chat.
Yes, if I can finish talking, I will do my best to get into VC chat. So focus, I think, this hyper focus on the dissipation of performance, it's used only in one direction, and that's to argue that, well, trans women ought to be given the benefit to learn, to grow and learn their sport for 20 years and then compete against normal women. But we're not going to, that doesn't go the opposite direction. We don't recognize that trans men are bulking up to be able to compete satisfactorily against natural born men.
Yeah, we do.
No, we don't. To be clear, no, we don't. And whenever you ask for examples, there's like 2 trans men that are given. One that has like 1 finish in a boxing match ever, and then another one that does race walking in the Olympics.
So we'll go to Dr.
Trans men are just completely left behind.
I want to get Dr. K in here, and then Ashley, who actually has a bit of knowledge on this. So I called Ashley in because she's good with this stuff. So Dr. K, then Ashley.
Yeah. Okay. It's been a while since this sort of was being talked on, but one, I think Wine Mom's like essentially idea of a ranking system based on skill is completely fine, and that you have classes for like the 800 to 1000, the 600 to 799, shit like that. Sounds completely reasonable to me. And if it eliminates women's spaces from sports and makes it so that, I mean, keep in mind, it'd be eliminating men's spaces from sports as well, and I have absolutely no issue with that. The TERFs are completely right. I do want to actually get rid of gendered spaces in the sports arena, and that they are 100% right. And I don't base my opinions off of what the most radical TERFs, fear that I'm going to do. And moreover, way back, right, is... Governor Abbott is explicitly transphobic. He essentially, the original reason for him initiating those laws was he was gunning up fear of child abuse for something that essentially didn't exist. And so it is pretty clear that he's throwing red meat to a base to try and appeal to the most hateful people in Texas and ginny them up for the upcoming elections.
Dr. K, just to try to build a bridge, even if you don't think you should change what you literally believe based on people, do you think that there maybe could be a sort of concession as to what we're pushing for with the realities of what is feasible, sort of like a Hillary Clinton private versus public position based on where public opinion is?
No, I think the point buy system is fine, and TERFs, if they don't like that, can shove it, I guess.
All right, thank you, Francis.
Let's go to Ashley.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. I actually talked with Flotrace about this the other day. So, with sports, especially with women's sports versus men's sports, the original reason that this division actually happened was because men's sports were so better funded and men were so much more established in the sporting world that having them compete against women that were just now starting and entering the field back in the 1800s would just be ridiculous, right? It would never be even. So I think that a lot of the division that we had based on sex for all this time, definitely there's warrant to it, but it was based on kind of an imbalance there. So I would say that if we are going to separate sports based on sex, we should also consider separating sports based on income. I mean, if you look at income, that's another big predictor of how good you are going to be at sports. And that's likely because you don't have as much time to actually practice. That can mean a lot of things, right? You can't really just go into sports if you don't have disposable income. You just can't. So if we are going to put brackets on sex, I think that we should consider putting brackets on income. We should consider putting brackets on other predictors of that kind of stuff. Look at someone like Michael Phelps, for instance, right? He has a very abnormal wingspan. He has abnormal lactic acid, and that's why he's the top swimmer. There's definitely skill that he's put into it, right? But you look at these other genetic anomalies that he has, and that's really a big part of why he's able to be at the top. So when we're talking about trans women in sports, I think this is just pushing a conversation about sports that we all need to start to have in general, and it's not trans specific, about why are we separating sports based on sex when we should probably separate based on other things. I just came in, I'm sorry if I missed, but that's my opening and kind of response.
That's pretty good, thank you.
I would like to comment that is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. We're not making separate brackets for sports based on income. This is just delusion. This is never happening, right?
I'm not saying it. I'm not actually advocating that we should do that. I'm saying that if we're going to do this, we should consider doing it.
Okay,
It's comparable to the sex
If we look at where the
distinction, right? Is the
population
point.
is, right? 99% of people are okay with the classifications where they are. Why would we ever expect to make any headway with the idea that we actually need to have like 52 different divisions? Which, by the way, even if we draw those divisions, there's still going to be male-female divides in those divisions, and we're still going to have the same conversation.
Who cares?
Unpopular societal changes can never occur. That's a good position, Destiny.
Weird moral realism take. Weird moral.
You would never want to make an unpopular position more popular. Why would you do that?
So, to be clear, I understand that like we're never going to divide sports on income, right? But what I'm trying to say is that the science is really showing that at least like in the woman and men division, that maybe we could make changes to that to allow women to compete with men and like make the sports more even, right?
But women don't want to compete with men. That's the issue.
Right, that's the problem. Women are not able to successfully compete against men in the vast majority of athletic endeavors. That's why we see the top 300 high school boys completely wrecking 9-time gold medal Olympic women sprinters. I mean, that you're still going to end up with a male-female distinction simply because of that performance advantage problem.
Yes, you are going to mostly end up with a male-female thing. We're just talking about a slight variation for trans people and some exceptions. And Destiny is absolutely right. It's never going to be implemented because 99% of the people don't care about it. What we're talking about here is because it's interesting and it's titillating or whatever the hell it is, and people enjoy chatting about it.
Well, I think the thing with Ashley's point that I really want to add to is the important or the significance of what they said was that income is still a deterministic factor for people's performance, supposing that that's correct, right? So why wouldn't we take that into consideration comparable to sex? If there's deterministic factors,
income is so much more malleable, right? There are poor kids in the NBA. There are no women competitive in the NBA.
and there's HRT, which makes people's physiognomy malleable for their competitive ability.
HRT does not get. I don't know if there are no trans people on this panel, or I don't know if they're all fake, or but HRT is not the be-all and end-all of transitioning. Talk to any number of trans people that are fucking off themselves because HRT alone doesn't get you all the way there. Once you've gone through puberty,
once you've gone through
puberty as a certain sex, there is a ton of stuff that changes in your body that is really, really fucking hard to undo or impossible to undo. You can't just do HRT and be the same as the sex that you want to be.
Here you go. Right. I grew up poor, and now I'm fat because of it. And I was fat throughout the entirety of my teenage years. All right. So my body has been conditioned to be a little fatso my whole life. All right. Why isn't that a divide between, like income? Why wouldn't that make me, subject
because
to
there was the possibility in your life that even though you were poor, you could have not been fat. There's no possibility.
No,
that,
I was poor, and my mom took me to McDonald's all the time because we were poor and we had no time, and she worked.
I don't know. I think your mom dropped you on the floor a couple times in your head too. I don't know what else. to say.
No. There's a bunch.
I don't know what else to say. Go to a doctor, get a fucking X-ray, figure out what's loose.
Right. So should we have a argument? Then don't make a ridiculous add-on.
It's not a ridiculous. It's that I can show you poor people that are not fat. And I can show you a lot of poor people that are fat, but I can't find you a single woman that can be competitive in 95% of male sports. That's the difference. But you don't. I think
you're discounting all the female tennis players. The fact that gymnastics is almost entirely female. The fact.
Hold on, wait a second. You said female tennis players. Hold on, wasn't it the case that the rank 1 female tennis player lost 49 times in a row to the rank 400 male tennis player? You want to talk about gymnastics? Women can compete in some special things because of the size and shape of their bodies, but men don't compete in those same events.
Even if that was the case, that would only be for those sports. But we're not talking about just a single sport.
No, but so
we're talking about sports broadly.
Wait, so Dylan,
you're saying that men don't compete in gymnastics?
No, hold on. There's not. Hold on. No.
Against women.
There's not a thing called gymnastics. Gymnastics is a whole bunch. There's a ton of different things in gymnastics. Men and women don't typically do the same events.
Gymnastics in the Olympics, women outcompete men drastically.
If that was the case, that would only be supporting your argument for gymnastics. But I think all of us are making your argument about sports generally.
Well, Dylan.
Okay, fine. Synchronized swimming.
No, but Dylan,
trying to decide if Destiny, if you like arguing or if you like being right.
Vanilla. He's been trying to get it out. Please, Vanilla.
Yeah, so Dylan, this whole income argument, are you saying that a woman who was raised in a household that made $100,000 is going to be comparable to a man who was raised in a household that made $100,000 as far as their ability to compete in athleticism?
How did you get the impression Dylan was saying that?
Yeah, that's a weird extrapolation of my argument.
You said
my argument is that
segregated by incomes, right?
Yeah, so my argument is that a kid who has like, wealthier parents, right, who's able to sign them up for sports lessons when they're young, give them access to a gym, training facilities, all of these things, is going to be more athletically capable than little fatso Timmy who went to McDonald's every day and ate a junior chicken, and now he's
no
like got a BMI of 26.
Yeah, so you're
I'm
saying all that
fat kids are way worse at sports than kids who are not fat. And the deterministic factors behind poverty, which tend to show that poor people are fatter and more likely to be obese, is a very good deterministic factor for their athletic capabilities.
See, this is
hold on.
Real quick. So this is where we see this fetish with incomes completely melt down on itself, because we see.
Look, dude, if you're gonna give me some ridiculous like fucking Jordan Peterson big brain like sit in the chair argument, it's just like a monologue. Like, just make the point.
Yeah. So Dylan, if you go, so are you saying that we should or shouldn't separate these classes based off income? Or yes or no?
No, I'm saying that it doesn't matter to me. I'm saying that the case logically can be made for you to separate people based on sex, just like income.
But it can't be.
Yeah,
because, like I said, just to be clear, for the 50 millionth time, there are no women that are competitive with men in men's sports. There are poor people that could be competitive with wealthy people in sports. That's the difference.
And I think the other problem Dylan you're having here is that if you're, I think what Vanilla's trying to get across here is that if it's the same sort of logical basis for division along gender or sex with division among income, well, you are advocating for sort of abolishing that division. Should we not be doing the same?
Well, I haven't really thought about that particular aspect of the argument, but I'm saying that the logic is consistent for the other argument.
No, I asked you this question. And you said, no, it's not what you're saying. If you're saying that the income segregation is the same as the sex segregation, then we should be able to create leagues based off the income. And so then you would have a male who was raised in the house that made $100,000 competing against a woman who was raised in the house and made $100,000. So you think that would be fair?
I think that would be
quick. I'd like to
equitable
thank Dooby for showing up, and I hope him and Destiny go at it a little bit. But we were talking. Go, Dylan.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying.
Why would I?
So wait, I was saying that. I'm saying that a woman and a man who are born in similar circumstances probably have relativistic, or I should say, a woman born in like a wealthier position than a man has a higher relativistic chance to being competitive in a sport, or equitable chance to someone who was born in poverty.
Okay, no, okay, but we're not talking. Wait. We're not talking about being competitive in a sport within themselves, because you're saying this woman has a better chance to be competitive in the sport against other women.
I'm not saying either which way. I'm saying that they're both deterministic.
You are
saying nothing.
Competitive.
You are saying nothing.
No, I am saying that they're equitable.
What is that?
Deterministic, equitable. You haven't made either one of those points.
Wait, so is it like a woman is walking down the street and like a guy goes to rape her? She's like, bro, I make $250K a year. What are you, like, working at McDonald's? You're not gonna beat me. And she like beats the shit out of the guy because she's strong. Like, I don't even know where the fuck we're at right now and what world we're at in this discussion.
What have I come into? What is?
I think
if you guys want to up my weight class, please sub to the channel and give bits or give subs.
I think I can clear what Dylan's trying to say.
There's money to pride.
So, okay, One Mom, do you want to do that? And then Ashley, I know you wanted to say something, and then Jishu.
Yeah, so I think what Dylan is sort of trying to say is that not that we should separate sports on income. He's just saying that it is a thing that can be somewhat determinate. If I have two people, like even the ability of someone to hire good coaches, have better equipment while they're younger, money is a bit of a predictor at the same gender when it comes to the ability to become a professional athlete. It is. It helps. I don't.
Yeah, no one's disagreeing with that. But
okay, I think that's his point.
Yeah,
no, but he's saying that the income.
What part of that don't you understand?
No, you're saying that the income separation, or using the income as determinant, is equitable to the separation between sex. And we're saying that no, it's not, because if you look at comparing just someone based off their income, if you compare the male who was raised in income that made the same amount as a woman who made the same amount, you're going to get two completely different outcomes if you're only using income as a factor, which you're saying we can, just like we use sex only as a factor.
Well, this is just dumb on its face in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's just stupid.
If this argument made sense, then the NBA would be full of white people. it's almost the inverse, right?
And the NFL and
well, maybe we should.
Well, but that one guy was saying earlier that black people were stronger than white people. So
I'm gonna finish. So what we have to understand is that the sociological factors that force black people to take up positions in entertainment or sports are there because of the lack of economic opportunity elsewhere. So people that can become fucking doctors and all this other shit that is more stable, more likely, they would go into those positions if they're economically successful than trying to be one of 7 billion to get this one spot on an NBA team. So like, I think there are inverse proportional factors that drive people into sports, and income is one of those.
So the thing with that is this could be looked at from like two different angles. There's people who use that as like a motivation or a driving factor because they want to achieve some more success in their life. But then there's also people who were raised in like such a way in which they didn't have access to anything to begin with. So it would make it incredibly difficult for these people to actually get into the positions that they're trying to be in. Right? That's what I'm saying. And I don't know what's difficult to understand about a child who is raised in poverty, whose parent raises them, and they make certain life choices regarding their diet, regarding their mental health.
Gambit, 1 second. I need to ask really quickly. Hold on, really quick. I love you.
Okay.
I didn't even get to finish my sentence.
I need to. This is gonna drive me insane.
Look, shut up, everyone. Shut up. Oh my God, everyone who's not Prime, be quiet. All right. Dooby's a handsome guy, so we'll go to Dooby, and then we'll go to GSU. We'll go to order of handsomeness, okay? Dooby, GSU, and then whoever the fuck you were talking to. And then I Ashley, because she's been waiting.
We don't need to get deep into this. We don't need to get deep into this, but so if you're saying we should, because income might be a factor that might be deterministic in is like whether or not somebody gets access to the training they need to be a professional athlete or whatever the fuck. Why wouldn't you also have like mental health breakdowns in the leagues, right? Oh, this person has an anxiety disorder. This person has depression. So hey, there's the depressed league, right? Where they're very sad and all the time. Here's the bipolar league, right? You could break this down to fucking everything. It doesn't. Why would we do that? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
What I'm saying is that is also like things like that can also be extrapolated to be deterministic of someone's performance, right? Like typically when you think of like a depressed person, right? A depressed person's not going to wait. I'm not done. A depressed person on average is not going to be the greatest athlete of all time. You see a trend within these people that a lot of them are like bedridden or like they have a lot more difficulties functioning in society due to their mental illness as compared to people who have like, I would say like more of a standard mental health profile.
So
quick, somebody loop
really quick.
into the conversation.
Can I jump in really quick?
Categories, please. Somebody loop Dooby into the
conversation.
Can I jump
in? I really want to ask Dooby one quick question, and I'm okay with like anybody else jumping in. Dooby, yeah, this is gonna. I don't want this to sound bad faith. I'm genuinely curious. How do you feel about like dissolving the Special Olympics?
I don't feel about it. I don't give a fuck about it, right?
Oh,
but
okay.
but if you guys were, if you guys wanted to talk about like making a special like sports league for people with mental health issues, fucking go for it. I guess if you can get support, I don't give a fuck.
There is one.
Yeah, but
yes.
No, but that's like physical like handicaps, right? It's not like like mental health shit.
No,
there are mental handicaps.
Just a quick thing. Even if you make these leagues, they're still going to be divided by male and female, though. You're not going to have a depression league with depressed men. With
I think most people are
only like
so
on
let's
but you're also going to have
work
people
our way
divided.
back. Let's work our way back. So GSU, then Ashley.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So I don't know where y'all are in this conversation a little bit because I think everything Dylan's saying is crazy, but I do want to posit something. So I've been having this conversation on Prime panels for a while, and what people said in the beginning, and I knew they were lying. They said, "Hey, HRT reduces all of these physiological attributes that we know it doesn't reduce." And they were like, "So this thing is fair for cisgender women to be pitted against trans women because all of their advantages are reduced." Now that the data is there, that y'all alluded to, which y'all don't want to accept, is there, that says that those characteristics are not reduced, and there is some level of advantage that's preserved. Even
you show this data?
Even you can look it up. It's from Harvard. It's from UK data, and there's a third source too. You can go look it up. You have Google. I have faith that you can find.
Yeah,
if you have it, you can put it in.
If you're citing a source, you can cite the source.
I will Google right after I finish talking. Okay. I'll do your work for you. But anyway, So now that this data exists and it's pretty clear and it's pretty accepted, what are your reasons for saying that this is still fair for cisgender women to compete at a athletic disadvantage? What's y'all new points? 'Cause I know y'all moved the goalpost.
I could go into this if you would like. So, to my knowledge, the data actually is pretty consistent that like trans people, after like a certain testosterone level that they'll reach, a certain amount of transition, generally around 2 years on HRT, they'll generally be able to compete in several sports pretty fairly. Now, I want to be clear. There are sports where trans people, I don't think, can fairly compete. One big one is distance running. HRT cannot reduce your lung capacity enough to make that fair, right?
Yeah, it can't reduce your height. It can't reduce a bunch of
It can't
things.
reduce your height as well. And both those are very important to running. So I agree.
Very important to a lot of sports, not just running.
Yeah, a lot of sports. But
this isn't local to running.
I'm bringing up distance running because that is the point where you get a 12% increase in win rate. And I agree with you, right? But I just also think that there's other sports that this just isn't shown in the data that this win rate increases, right?
Okay, so hold on. Just so I understand your opinion. Your opinion is there are certain sports where cis women should not be pitted against trans women because trans women have clear, decisive advantages. Is that your opinion? Or would you still say, despite those advantages, they should still be pitted against each other?
I'd say that in certain sports, no. I would be. I would be okay.
Would you say? So you cited height, and you cited height. You cited what else did you cite? I can't remember.
Lung capacity.
And there's things like reaction time, muscle twitch. So you're saying in those sports where those things. Hold on. I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. In those things, in sports where those things are like very important to the outcomes in that sport, you're saying that in those sports, trans women should not be able to compete with cis women. So if height is a big determining factor,
I'm bringing up the two that I know are the most researched.
Yes, and I'm
saying
asking
if
you to make
could show research that all of these things were the case.
No. I'm asking you to make a categorical statement on the advantages that you yourself have admitted you're aware of. So in instances where a sport where height is important, where lung capacity is important, in sports where those things are important, are you willing to make a categorical? Wait, no, but that's what I'm asking you. Are you willing to make a categorical statement that when those things are important, due to clear advantages, trans women should not compete against cisgender women? Are you willing to make that statement?
I am not going to make. I'm going to say that this has to be done by sports, right? It can't be a if you want it to be fair.
But that's what he's asking. He's asking.
No, I'm denying. I don't think you can make a solid category.
The point is that the determining factor is not sort of any sort of underlying analysis from like a logic lord level, but the hard data as to whether or not the win rates are effective.
And it seems like the data says that in distance running,
you can't use that as the data because that's based off the performance of the individual.
What GSU is saying is that if there are some athletic events where after you transition, it seems like you still have a massive advantage, would you be okay saying that trans women can't compete against cis women in those events? That's what GSU
Yes, if the data showed it, then
okay, that's what he's asking.
But the data right now only seem, I could probably get you a list, right? If I sat down and got a list. But like the biggest one that I would note is distance running. But there's other sports where that isn't the case, right? So it seems like the data.
But you can't use the data because this data is based off the performance of that. Hold on, this data is based off the performance of that individual. So if you took the top male and they transitioned and you looked at how often they beat the female competitors versus if you took the 100th ranked male and that person transitioned and looked at how many times they beat their competitors, you'll have two completely different results. That doesn't tell you how effective the transitioning is in balancing the scale.
There's no doubt that you could have flawed data, but if that's the case, that's something where we need to pull up the study, read through it together.
No, it's not a flaw.
It's not a flaw. Here, if I can, his point though is, look, if you take Michael Phelps and transition Michael Phelps, right? There's probably a very different transition story for Michael Phelps and the suppression of testosterone and how that affects his performance and achievement versus taking a middling Division I college swimmer like Leah Thomas, transitioning her for a year and seeing her start beating female Olympians in the college national championship.
I agree.
Well, hold on. Let's be clear with Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas was like first place at her university before she took our HRT. She was first place in many events in the men's category, and that 432 number that you keep getting cited is her performance after she started HRT, because she was competing in the men's category for a year while she was taking HRT. And so her performance.
I don't think she was first place in any men's category.
Yeah, no, she was. So she was in first place at no, I can bring it up right now. So at Penn State University.
No. You're comparing this person did at their school to how they're doing nationally today, which is insane.
Okay.
This is literally insanity.
Hold on.
Do you agree?
Holy shit. GSU, why don't you let the person finish first? Let the person finish first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you agree that
You're not gonna do that? Okay.
that Leah Thomas has had post-transition is wildly different than the success that they had pre-transition?
Ash, please.
No, because Leah Thomas was a very respected and a very prominent swimmer before she transitioned.
Wait, in what? What was her place in what?
Within her university, she.
No, hold on. I absolutely don't care.
Ash can't finish a single sentence. No sentences are on. Literally, can I please finish a sentence?
And then I'd love for you to respond afterwards. Destiny. Ash.
So Leah Thomas placed first in multiple events within her university, and outside of her university, she also placed second in an Ivy League championship and around 60th, 50th in other places. Anyway, the point is to say that nationally. Yeah, sure. I can bring them up right now. Let me just find them. Give me a second.
National stats while she was in the university.
Yeah, because inter-school competition, who cares? It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, inter-school competition at like some of the top athletic universities does matter, actually.
Yeah, but it's a side point. National stats, right? Like if you're first place in your school, like that's not as impressive as being like probably third or fourth nationally, right? Isn't it?
Right, nationally.
You can respond if you want now, Destiny. While we're waiting, and then I want to debate board. I think you had another point. I want to make sure you got that point, and then we'll go to Striker. Yeah.
And first, everybody say goodnight to Dylan.
Good night, Dylan.
Peace, Dylan. You have a good one.
Good night, party people.
Good night, Dylan.
Okay. You don't want to respond, Destiny? All right, that's fine.
He doesn't want to say goodnight to me because he's being a meanie.
He said goodnight. He said goodnight.
Thank
now
you.
I rescind my good night. I hope you have a bad night.
Wow.
Let's go to debate board if you had something to say.
Yeah, thanks. And this touches on Vanilla's point about the individual transition cases. And I think, Ashley, I would like to extend to you a request that the data, as you keep referring to the data, is not as conclusive as I think you want it to be, or that you may be generally trying to insist it is right now. While you're talking about in certain sports, we see this, in certain sports, what that demonstrates is that the data is not consistently swinging in either direction, that suppressing testosterone or other transition-based treatments are resulting in substantial performance reductions. And I think that's an important point to make, because there's this general casual appeal to data here, as though that data is conclusive, and that data carries some weight of authority in this discussion, and I just don't think it does.
Like if we had if we had different data, like if we didn't have the data, then you would ask for the data. You know you would.
Wine Mom 4,
Exactly.
I put data. Synth helped me with this earlier. I referred to it earlier. Okay, so look, the data is not conclusive, and yet we casually throw it around as authoritative claims that the data is and the data is not. That's just not the case here. And we ought to be honest about it if we're actually honest about this conversation.
So debate board,
just to clarify.
Can I ask a couple questions?
It's both the data and the results that we're looking at, as far as a few other things.
Ashley, yes. Okay, I'll ask you first. Do you have that information? Then we can give that information. Then Ashley, you can have that back and forth. Okay.
Yeah, so Thomas, this wasn't a national, this was an Ivy League, which is just, around New England, but these are still like
a large portion of the colleges that compete at the top level. She placed second in the 500, 1,000, and 1650 yard freestyle events. So these were large, like the Ivy League championships. She placed second in multiple events. So the idea that Leah Thomas was a nobody middling athlete that went to getting first in the women's division is just wrong. That's
Can you
not
cross-reference that stats to national stats though for us?
And also, can you post that somewhere? Because
yeah, right here. It's
that'd
in
be
VC chat. Here's the 2019 results. It was I'll put in VC the specific events. It was the 500, 1,000, 1650. There you go.
So cross that over to national stats as well too for us, if you can like find a way to connect that, please.
What do you like? Do you want
Like
me to
the times of the
compare her
race,
times
On the
to
national time.
Sure.
On the national
absolutely.
times in that same
Okay.
time.
All right. So then we'll go to Ashley, and then if there's anyone else.
You put me on list.
A question.
Okay.
I have a question for the panel.
Okay. All right. So no. It's Ashley first. Ashley.
Okay.
I want to hear
Trace,
Jason answer my question.
and then Ashley, Phil, Trace, and Jason. Okay.
Okay, so I actually wanted to respond to Debateboard and go back because he was directly responding to my point earlier. So when we're talking about the data being kind of scattered on this, right, and not perfect, I wouldn't fully disagree with you. I would just also say that the data is showing that in some sports it probably is a problem, and in other sports it's probably not a problem, right? Now, yes, we don't have enough data to be super duper conclusive. I would actually really agree with you. But I'd say that the issue is when we have, like with what we have, it's pretty clear that in some sports it's not that effective. Right?
I would also just, in terms of the Leah Thomas percentages, if somebody disagrees with this particular thing, you can let me know. But during the 2018-2019 campaign, when Thomas was still a member of her school's men's program, her best time in the 200-yard freestyle was an effort of 1:39:31. I don't even know but 1:39:31. That mark was good for only 554th in the nation of all divisions, and didn't sniff the qualification standard for the NCAA champs. But the moment she went 1:41:93. During a December 2021 invitational, she was ranked first among women. That seems pretty stark.
Hold on. Where was the first? What are you reading that from?
It's everywhere on the top.
This is just about her thing. I can link you the article.
I mean, please, because I want to know what I want to know what's comparing.
Ivy League level, Ivy League swimming it doesn't compare favorably to the Pac-12 or to the Big Ten or other, if you will, power football conferences, right? And so consequently, while we saw her time as 1:39 and change in this event as competing as a man, as soon as she transitioned for about a year, and she dropped or slowed down by 2 seconds, she became the #1 competitor among female.
Well, Debateboard, this is why people release the articles that people like Ash read, because they give off this perception that this person nationally was good before they transitioned when they weren't. And people like Ash hopefully will accept the data that Destiny is putting out there. Everybody knows that this person was not the level of athlete that they are now at all in any way. It's not comparable.
No, hold on. The 200 yard that you listed was not like an event that she won in. Like her events are the 500, 1,000, and 1650.
Yeah, but you're saying events she won in school. Like I don't know who's competing in that.
The Ivy League championships.
I don't even know if Ivy. So listen, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have a sports background. I have a music background.
Yeah, I do. I have a sports background.
Okay, then tell me if I'm wrong, and I'd be surprised if I am wrong. My guess is going to be that when you're an athlete in high school or college, you probably pick and choose the events that you compete in. My guess is that even college athletes might skip certain events because they're training for others. Is that true or is that false?
No, that's going to be true.
Okay, so I don't know then who's competing when you say Ivy League school. It might be that the top 1 or 2 or 3 athletes in that school don't compete in the intra-school things because they're more focused on nationals or something. That might be the case. That's why I don't really care about the finishes. That's why we're asking for the times, because the times are what are really important here.
And when we're comparing the times compared to records are like in, again, the 5,000, the 500, the 1,000, 1650 are not that much slower than like overall men's records.
But that's what we're looking at.
Right now.
Their finish was 554th in the nation for their best 200-yard time. But when they changed to women's, she was first.
Is there any ideally neutral resource?
Before that, we got Ashley at the back. I forgot our striker person. I'm sorry, I completely dropped.
No worries.
I apologize. So Ashley, finish up whatever point you're having. Striker, then Flo Trace, then Jason's deciding.
So I just wanted to ask more so a debate board, right? And this is like just me trying to understand like your actual like takes on this, which is if a trans woman did not go through male puberty, so she did not get these advantages. She was at an early age given puberty blockers and then given a female puberty, right? So she did not go through male puberty. Would you be okay with them competing? Because it seems like that would be fine, according to the data I've seen.
What data have you seen that shows that? Because I think there's contrary data. Even like I don't like to use the word degradation, but the modifications that happen during cisgender female puberty put them, I believe, still at a disadvantage.
Well, but she's saying if it was prepubescent, and I'm going to answer this right now. There's no way there's data for this, right? This is like such a niche issue. What?
But there's a different conversation though, Destiny. Even people who are biologically male that don't go through male puberty can have advantages over cisgender women who have went through female puberty.
They might, but the big sexual differentiations happen during puberty. If you puberty,
no, for sure, it's exaggerated. Yeah. Yes, but I'm saying that even still, I don't think there's data to show that non-puberty having biological males perform at the same level of post-puberty cisgender females. I don't think that data exists, and you made the claim that it does. So I want to see.
No, I want to be clear. You interrupted me while I was talking, so I want to be clear on the data that I'm talking about. It's that pre-pubescent trans people that transition seem to be pretty much in line on vitals with cisgender. That's why I'm making the claim.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that post-puberty females
I could agree with you that might be something that's worth studying more, and I would agree that I'm just more so asking, right? Broad question. That's what I mean to say.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm asking debate board that.
And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
If you don't know, that's fine.
What happens to a naturally born boy who I guess has some hormone blockers, I guess, is somehow blocked from going through puberty, and what that actually means for that boy when they reach 17 or 18. I don't know what that looks like, so I can't answer that question.
Well, let's just round it out real quick, because here's what I get from
we got a lot of people. We got to make sure we get them all. Dooby, I saw your hand up too. So let's Ashley, go ahead if you have anything else.
I just wanted to also ask, when we have cases of intersex people competing under as women, right? Because they were assigned women at birth, and they compete as women, would you be for banning those people if they had a advantage over cisgender women?
I don't know. I haven't thought about intersex people in competitive sports because it's such a tiny number of people. It just hasn't crossed my radar.
It's like if you look at like intersex in the population, it's about the same amount of trans people.
Yeah, but we're talking about intersex people in sports, and I just don't know sufficient.
Yeah, no, intersex people
actually have a opinion on it.
Intersex people are significantly overrepresented in sports. At least in
their overrepresentation could actually equal 4 across men's athletics around the world. I simply don't know of enough cases to actually draw an opinion. If you have an opinion on that because you have some sense of what that looks like, well, tell us more about it.
Yeah, so it seems like if we would be for banning like trans women completely from women's sports in every case, we probably should consider intersex people, because it seems like XY gonadal is decently common compared to its.
So let me ask you a question. I can't. So we got to move on. We got Striker, who hasn't had a chance to talk at all. We're going to go to Flowtrace, Jason, and then Dooby.
I think part of the problem that ends up happening when we're having these conversations is we focus heavily on like these individual people rather than thinking about the sports as a whole and thinking about people as a whole and like sexes as a whole with how people develop. And if they're developing we're not talking about like a trans person that is just deciding to start playing sports at 23 and after they've been transitioning but not exercising whatsoever through their life, like someone like me. We're talking about people typically that have been training since they were like 13 or 14, and that provides like a significant advantage even if you've been on hormones for quite a while. So it just seems like it's not really a relatively like, I don't think we're like thinking about this in the right perspective.
Thank you. Let's hit up Flowtrace.
Destiny, there was something you said earlier, which I think is just totally true, that regardless of how we feel about a lot of these implementations of things we'd like to do about trans people in sports, they're very unrealistic, and they're not going to happen. Is there anything that you would point to as something more realistic, as sort of like a more incrementalist position that you would prefer us to advocate for, or I'm just genuinely curious about that.
I think the most reasonable position right now is trans people should probably be allowed to compete in open sports. So right now that's basically with men, and then potentially creating a trans category in the future. I don't think anything else makes sense right now.
You can't.
Do you think that might have limitations in like especially rural areas that have limited like pools for these sports, where there might not be enough trans people to sort of actually have their own division?
Possibly, but I mean, women's sports deal with a lot of the same issues sometimes. That's why you have like Title 11 or whatever, or Title 9 or shit.
So basically, you just like don't want trans people to have like matter.
Trans people
so
would
basically,
never.
you just don't want cis women to be competitive. Wait, what? No, it's not about that. It's about it's that women need a protected.
You're creating irrelevant league.
JSU, you're all over that shit. Come on.
Yeah,
You guys are saying you don't want trans people to compete at all.
Nobody have said that.
Or you want to ferret them off into their little lone hole where they're away from everybody else because you're fucking
scared. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's what you're fucking saying, dude.
No, that's what we're saying. Hold on.
Listen, you guys are gonna spin it around to all this different shit, but at the end of the day, you don't want them to compete in sports.
Okay, and at the end of the day, you want to destroy women's sports. At the end of the day, you want to destroy women's sports. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. Wow, great arguments. Nice job.
Okay, so you're never gonna get enough trans people.
There are women that can compete with men, so whatever.
There are not women that compete with men.
You're the one infantilizing women, thinking they can't compete with men. So
you're just absolutely fucking retarded.
No, yeah. Listen.
You're right on top of things.
I can't think of any other way to say it. I'm sorry.
He's a very stupid person. We've had this argument before, which is why I specifically wanted Jason to answer the question. The last time me and Jason had this conversation, what he said was, you just don't understand. The data shows that they're on the same level and there's no advantages. And now that the data is very fucking clear that there are advantages that are maintained even after HRT, Jason, what is your new idiotic point? Why do you feel like cisgender
I don't think sports should be gendered at all, GSU.
Bro, go on a fucking airplane and look at like the average woman can't even push her bag into the overhead compartment. Like you want these people competing with me? I'm sorry, but like that's just not how the world works. That's not where we're at in reality right now.
Transphobes tonight, you guys.
Jason, you're not understanding Destiny's Child.
If I could just do a bit of a
you guys are fucking morons.
If I could just do a bit of a follow-up question.
That guy with face, by the way.
Jason.
If I could do a bit of a follow-up question. Destiny, if you think that we should have these sort of separate, I guess, like divisions or leagues for trans people, and that would sort of be very similar to how under Title 9 and Title 11, and I could be wrong on this. If I am, just please interrupt me. I don't care. How schools will often set aside funding or take special precautions to try and maintain these divisions for women when they otherwise might not. I feel like that would just. I feel like that sort of has a very similar problem in terms of being impractical, where I feel like if you're trying to fund like separate like trans leagues and like schools, especially like rural areas where this problem is going to be most pronounced because of like a limited pool of people, I feel like you're borderline running to like the exact same issues of
whatever.
Like,
no. Because the issue, and I'm sorry if this sounds mean, but the issue is that on one end you want to affect 50% of athletes. You want to affect all of women's sports and potentially damage what they perceive to be the integrity. And what we could argue is the integrity of those sports. And on the other end, I'm saying, well, maybe 1% of athletic people need like a special place to compete.
Okay, but there's literally not enough trans people for you to actually make a league that has enough people. Like there's literally not enough trans people.
That's just unfortunate.
Then your position is that you just don't think that trans people should have an opportunity to compete.
They can compete in the open with men. They can compete in women. You guys don't believe sex differences exist anyway, so
no, if you want to just make an open league, that's fine.
I want to hear, because I actually do want to hear, like, because what are the implications about what you're talking about, Destiny? So I want to hear his response to that, like saying that you don't want trans people to compete. Please, Destiny.
I'm not saying I don't want them to compete, but I'm saying that they cannot compete in the protected women's category.
Why not?
That's what I'm saying. Because they have an unfair advantage conferred on them.
We've been talking about. Hold on. We've been talking about data a lot tonight, but it's very clear that a lot of you guys have not actually like looked through a lot of the data, and so I've been doing nothing but all day, but actually looking at all the different studies on how HRT actually affects, and it's pretty inconclusive. It ranges from hold on, actually no. So when it comes to studies on HRT and how it affects the differences in performance between the sexes, the main thing for the differences between performance is going to be muscle mass. That's the main difference, like pound for pound, because men are going to be stronger.
You don't think height
stronger
is
than women.
important?
Well, no, because actually, if you
No,
take,
height isn't important?
hold on. If you take a man and a woman who are the same height and have the same muscle mass, they will perform at the same rate.
Yeah, why that disproportionately makes
Yeah, but
sense.
wait,
hold on,
Hold on.
wait. Can I
Hold on.
just, to be realistic, when you say same height and same muscle mass,
Yes.
that's almost impossible. Do you understand that?
No.
Okay,
That's-
you just don't understand human physiology. Do you understand how difficult it is for a woman to get the same body fat percentage?
I'm saying periods cause massive
what you are
differences
essentially
when you don't know enough about human biology.
No, what you're doing is
But the data is conclusive, even though the study I referenced earlier had 12 people in it.
First of all, the data. Also, all of these studies are small. Tell me you don't know any of the studies by
No,
saying
of course, that's why the data is inconclusive, right?
Okay, yes, that's true. So first of all,
Thank you.
there is a lot of reviews on people that, these are like 10 to 25 samples of things. I linked like 6 of them in the chat. You're gonna go through. It's not. If anything, it does seem to point towards the fact that trans women do have advantages conferred onto them. Even I think up to the longest one I think I saw was 4 years after transitioning, which makes sense. If you train as a biological male in the most important athletic years of your life, you're probably going to maintain some of those advantages. That just makes sense. But when you say that for the same leanness, a man could compete against a woman, that might be possible. But for a woman to hit the same leanness as a man,
for a woman to hit the same leanness, that's incredibly hard. Yes,
difficult. Almost
yes,
impossible.
that is incredible. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So-
But hold on. But the reason is that the differences in performances between men and women is because of that leanness, that body fat percentage. So
No, it's not just that.
Yeah, yes it is. No, hold on. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
So it is. So it is just that. When you look at and hemoglobin is another thing that's important. But hemoglobin is something that is so receptive to testosterone suppression, estrogen, and HRT that hemoglobin levels in trans women are the same as cis women, like 3-4 months in. So when it comes to muscle mass is really the most important thing here because you can have tall women.
Ash,
so it's high. Yeah.
Ash, do
Yes.
you think men are genetically predispositioned to be taller than? Do you think males are?
No, the height thing doesn't matter because you can have tall women.
The height thing doesn't matter.
irrelevant.
Just on average.
No, it does matter. It does matter.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't matter because if we had a 6'4" woman, we wouldn't tell her she can't compete with other cis women. The height thing doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
exactly.
you're missing
That's
like
me
the
right there.
entire plot. And this is like laughable, Destiny. That like you smarter than this. Listen, there's only a certain amount of people that are gonna be able to compete. If height is a important factor and the distribution of people that are tall are mostly biological males, that's the suppression of cisgender women. If you start to put those traditionally competing men into the female category.
Oh, you're saying that as a whole, if we've got thousands of trans people competing because of where the distribution lies, we'll only see trans women because they'll tend to be taller, right?
Yes.
Okay,
And
that makes
height
sense.
is an
All right.
important
Okay,
factor in
so
those
there's
sports.
there's such little trans people, and then there's even littler trans athletes that this is just not gonna. This is that I would be very shocked to see a future in which women's sports are almost entirely dominated by trans females. This does not seem to be the case.
Okay, but hold
anyway,
on. We were told
back
that
back
years
to the
ago,
other point.
but we keep getting case after case where it's starting to happen. How many is too many? Like what?
Okay, well, what do you? Well, okay, so.
What is
So
the
can you
number?
point to every sport? So can you point to 1% of all athletes that are winning like being trans in female leagues? Can you point to
No,
like
because that would be a
1% of trans
disaster.
athletes?
So we're not going to let that happen.
No, but like first of all, trans people are
You're
already
gonna save them.
So-
You're such a good knight.
Trans people are already a
No,
really
it's
small
just- it would
percentage
be
of the
stupid if it
population.
Yes,
occurred.
exactly.
Trans people are already a small percentage of the population, but they're still like shattering records. They were in esports,
Yeah, and
they
there
are
are
in like
cis women who are
so-
shattering.
Where are
records,
you
too.
getting the 4-year stat? Everything you posted in chat is 1 to 2 years.
The
My
3
understanding
years-
is 1 to
the 3
2
years
is
the
the
longest that I've found. The 3 year
Okay, maybe
from
3
Joanna
years
Harper
is
is the
longest
longest that I found,
before.
and so in the study that has the longest so far, it's 3 years. It shows that hemoglobin levels goes down to equivalent to cis women, and that muscle mass and lean body mass has significant decreases after up to 36 months and 48 months, but is not entirely equivalent. So for the longest study that we have, it is only one, and there are limitations as described in the paper, but it seems that the range of studies that we have that show lean body mass, there are 1 or 2 that say that that trans women have had the same levels of lean body mass as cis women after a certain amount of HRT, and there are some that show that there always is a reduction, but just not the same. So it seems as if that trans women will have either the same or a bit more lean body mass than cis women, but I don't think that that difference is unfair in the
Because
same
you're acting
in
like it's the
other
only thing
in
that
other ways.
matters.
That
You said that.
no, hold on.
Holy shit!
I literally just want to finish this one sentence. I don't think that the advantage I don't think that the advantage that trans women have in lean body mass over cis women, because it is either equivalent or slightly greater, is going to be that much unfair compared to other naturally occurring biological advantages that we have compared to like someone like Michael Phelps or other places.
Equation. Yes, nobody except you is dumb enough to try to boil this down to one physiological attribute. You're the person that's like, because the lean body mass thing isn't different. There's tons of different physiological factors that make it such that.
So do you want to tell me what those are? Do you want to tell me what the difference? Do you want to tell me what the difference is between male and female
There's height, there's
lung capacity? No, hold on.
There's muscle twitch. There's reaction time. There's the lean body mass. There's the hips. You want to keep going? There's a bunch of them.
Hold on.
But you're acting like one of them matter.
Okay, so let's go through them.
You asked me a question, I was giving you an answer, but now you got mad because there's so many fucking answers.
GSU.
So let's go through. Lung capacity is actually mostly related to height, and like Ashley said earlier, is only really important for super high endurance sports. A couple high endurance sports. When it comes to lung capacity and bone, when it comes, hold on.
You think lung capacity is not important when you're talking about like
no, hold on. When it comes to lung capacity, when it comes to lung capacity and bone density, it's not. Unless you're talking about super endurance sports, it's never going to be the limiting factor. Lung capacity and bone density and other stuff like this. The most important thing is just that you have healthy levels, because you're going to have enough that's not the limiting factor. Other things are going to be the limiting factor for your performance, like muscle mass or hemoglobin, which are things that are affected by HRT.
What about height? Height?
You can have tall women. Tall women.
I think. Wait, hold on. I just want to let's move the conversation rather than focusing on the different traits. Okay, so the main issue with this, the intelligent argument, rather than hyperfixating on these physiological differences, is that if we do agree that the hormone profile and the physiological profile of a cis male is superior athletically to that of a female in almost all cases, which I think we agree with, the biggest problem is that even if you transition, you were able to train essentially using like insane performance enhancing drugs for like the first huge section of your athletic career.
Wait.
Okay, so
no, this is still kind of driving me a little crazy. I'm a little curious because you said you come from music, but what is the transfer of I used to do a sport with more strength and now I do a sport with less strength, and so that training was more effective?
Yeah.
If I lose that strength, then what?
It's easier for you to maintain that strength. No. The transfer is that if you were able to train with more leanness, with more recovery, with greater bone density, with all of this for periods of years, you were able to achieve a level of strength and athleticism that a cis woman couldn't have attained.
Yeah, and then you lose
train under that. You lose parts of it.
Yeah,
but
you lose a large part of it. Yes.
Your muscles don't just melt away. You retain like a decent amount of that, and even
you lose a lot of it.
They really go away. I've been there.
No, they literally
I don't care what the frisbee golf experience is, right? If you take a cis woman and you take another cis woman, and one of these cis women cycles on fucking tren or they hardcore roid for like 3 or 4 years, and then they go to competitions down the line, the woman that was allowed to do a cycle or two of whatever fucking roid she wanted to get on is going to outperform the other one. It's just not fair.
Okay, so I gotta.
You can't know your drug levels that you were doing.
Dooby, who hasn't got a chance to talk in a while, but Phenomenics, you want to jump in afterwards? Oh, and Debate Poor, okay? And Ashley, Ashley, do you have your hand up? I'm not sure.
So because we're talking about her times as competing as a male, I actually looked it up and I compared them. So when she was competing with men, her second place in the Ivy League championships, 500 free, was 4 minutes and 18 seconds. First place in that event was 3 seconds faster than her. Third place was 2 seconds slower than her. Fourth and fifth was 3 seconds slower than her. When she started competing as a woman in the same event, her first place finish was 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Second place was almost 6 seconds out. Third was 8 seconds out. Fourth and fifth were 10 and 11 seconds out. So she finished almost 20 seconds slower in the women's race. Maybe that's the effects of the HRT, right? But she still beat out her closest competition. by almost twice the time spread between the first and fourth positions in the men's race.
Yeah,
right?
and she got
in
fifth in another race in that
I'm not done speaking. I'm not done speaking.
Let Dooby finish. And also, how about the hype train? We have a hype train on level 1 hype train, 50% down, 50% left. Let's see if we can get that to level 2. How about this community sub channel? Give bits, give subs. Go ahead, Dooby.
Okay. So in a sport like this, right, where the winners are determined by like milliseconds of time difference, when we now have research that shows that trans women they lose some of their male advantage, right, but they retain about a 12% advantage on women, even 2 years after starting HRT. How can we possibly say it's fair for her to compete in this league, right? And if you're admitting, Ash, that there are some benefits, right, that they might retain, would you be comfortable with saying that Leah Thomas specifically, or that trans women specifically, shouldn't be competing in this league, in like distance swimming?
Oh no, I think that they should, because the advantages that trans women show aren't any greater than other advantages that you find naturally occurring between cis men and cis women. Like you can have two cis male athletes who show great differences because of biological factors. For example, like Michael Phelps just genetically, like he just creates half the lactic acid of so many of his competitors. Like that is such a huge benefit when it comes to his swimming and such. Like there are so many benefits and disadvantages and different things that play into human physiology when it comes into sports performance, that to say that in the specific like stat that you referenced there, 12% faster on running, but in that same study there was no difference between trans women or cis women when it comes to sit-ups or push-ups, which were the strength tests, and the running.
That was an Air Force test.
Yeah, the Air Force test.
It wasn't an athlete test.
It wasn't an athlete test; it was an Air Force test. So that this specific study could only be roughly generalized, considering it's just we're taking like well-trained individuals, and that the running difference can almost entirely be explained by the fact that from height. Again, if you want to actually get a really good study on trans women compared to cis women, you're gonna want to find trans women and cis women who have similar training histories and who are also the same height and who also then measure their body mass and performance.
We'll have to get to it later. Got a few people online, right? Guys, I have a minute left on the clock. 83% done, 70% left in the level 1 hype train. Let's get to level 2. Sub to the channel, get bits of gift subs. How about this community? If you like the content, Phenomenics.
Okay, yeah, I was basically just gonna say that the 3 to 4 year studies are what's going to be really, really important. I think that it's pretty stupid to put the line at 1 year. If you're going to have like any sort of, if you're going to base it on like an amount of time to be on HRT, which I think is a bad way of doing it anyway. I think that what we were talking about earlier with creating different endocrinological classes is a fine system of doing it. Even if it creates like a type A and a type B category, it's much more inclusive to trans people to have like a name distinction that isn't going to be so man woman. That's a pretty easy distinction to pull out. I think that's like a really, really easy thing to do without having to make it this transphobic whirlwind that it turns into. I think it's really, really easy to stay within the scientific and understand that even after 3 to 4 years, chances are most of these trans women are going to be in that endocrinological class of this category that most cis women are going to.
If you make it 4 years, didn't you just get rid of all trans women from sports anyway?
What?
If you've got somebody that happens to transition at 19 and you tell them that they can't compete for 4 years, now you've removed them from college sports. Haven't you just accomplished the same thing?
Yeah, so that's why the 2 years seems to be good enough, because 2 years gets rid of
static?
almost.
Is it just me?
There's static.
Prime has some static.
Perhaps you remove them from college sports. They could easily compete in Class A during that period, right? They don't have to compete broadly with cis women during that time. They can be in Class A, especially if it's not a man class, if it's just like a Class A. And it would be super, super easy to transition them over, knowing that they're very good at competing, given that they've been competing for those 4 years. And we can really, really easily see that that's not even really relevant, right? It's probably just a better incentive then to make sure that we can provide better access to gender affirming care for children, so that they can get on puberty blockers and figure that shit out earlier. It's a better incentive structure in that regard too.
Super quick addition. That was something that Leah Thomas did. Leah Thomas was actually competing in the men's category while she was openly trans and on HRT. That's why her times got worse while she was on the men's team.
Anyway, amazing as they were. But no,
Do we have any other
Destiny,
examples besides Leah Thomas?
Hold on, Destiny. So this is why I understand the way that you want to argue this, but the problem is people don't understand distribution, and it's fundamental to why they construct all of this nonsense on top of it. When Ash, like, and I'm trying to be not disingenuous here, but when you say things like find similarly situated individuals, you don't understand that you've bypassed distribution. If you do a study and you take LeBron James and you're trying to find a similarly situated female as LeBron James, the likelihood of finding this person, even if there is one, is so incredibly low that it's
likelihood of finding
to...
a man like LeBron James is also extremely low. Like,
no, also hold on, wait. What she's saying is that like you can't take like like if the average woman in the United States is 5'6" and the average trans woman is 5'10". You can't just compare the average trans woman after transition to the average cis woman, because the average trans woman might outcompete the average cis woman on all these categories, but it might have more to do with height than the hormone.
No, exactly. Especially because the average female height is going to be like way taller.
Hold on, Destiny. This is fundamentally the most important point. The point is that if you take people from a pool that has genetic advantages, the likelihood of finding that person as a female is low. So that's why these people, like, athletes are the extremes, and people really don't understand that. And that's why the normative studies or the studies of the Air Force is a bit disingenuous.
I understand. So what Gambit is saying is that if we draw from a pool then of all trans women, if the average height of a trans woman is 5'10" and the average height of a cis woman is 5'6", then we're just going to see trans women dominate. Even if we do say that all else is equal, we say the hormone profile, the muscle, all of that is equal, trans women will still dominate because technically, distributionally speaking, they're going to be more likely to be taller than cis women. So we would expect to see trans women dominate just due to the distribution of height.
Okay, so we're going to debate board, Ashley, and then Dooby and
does Ashley have a response to that? That's GSU's thing, right?
Yeah, I would love to hear.
You want to hear Ashley first? Okay, we'll go Ashley, then debate board, then upload Trace, Dooby.
I think that the important thing when we're talking about sports is, we're talking about like these types of categories. I'm not even fully against adding a third category. I think that I could be sold on that. But what I guess I'm thinking is when we're dealing with women's sports, are we willing to get rid of women that are genetically anomalous, right?
We already do this.
To a severe degree.
Yeah, and that's bad.
Well,
and I guess what I'm trying to ask is then, are we willing to instate these limits? Like height, for instance, right? If we had a really tall woman, would we tell her that she can't compete? And that's more to GSU.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to hear
well,
what you
now.
I think you would.
Would we have told women, and I don't know if there's an example with height, but there are examples with like hormone levels and other things. So I can't say specifically if we've discriminated against a woman for her height. I don't know, but there is built into the system disqualifiers based off genetic characteristics that are anomalous, for sure.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about descriptive normatively. What do you
think
think should be the case? Do you think we should not allow tall women?
If there happened to be like a 15-foot woman, I think we all agree
exactly.
Be allowed to compete in like volleyball, right? She would just be swatting everything over the net. Same thing with men.
Wait, come on, y'all can't be serious, right?
If there's a 6'4" woman, would you
No, not 6'4" women, because 6'4" is not that. If you are a certain level of standard deviations away from the mean, there is a number that I'm willing to agree that if you're that far, you can't compete.
Would you say the same thing for men's sports? Wait, GSU, would you say the same thing for men's sports?
I don't know.
Like Yao Ming, like Yao Ming is.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is there a height cap for men's sports too? After a man's too tall, you won't let him compete?
If
exactly.
15 foot, I don't think.
You literally just said that. Come on. You literally just said that athletes are the extremes. You're going to take away extremes? This is dumb. Like, this is really, really dumb. If you're going to have extremes.
Like Michael Phelps?
No, it's not.
So
there's a distribution.
Either, right?
There's a distribution
Michael
even
Phelps
amongst
has
the
short legs and webbed fingers. That disqualified.
There's a distribution even amongst the extremes. That's the problem that y'all are completely missing. And if you're even wildly outside of that's why the lady with
Can you give some examples of when we've done that?
The lady that had the testosterone problem.
In men's sports. Can you give me an example of a man who was too strong or too tall or too big?
I can't. I don't know.
Because
that doesn't mean it
that.
doesn't exist.
Because we wouldn't do that. We don't do that.
Okay.
And we wouldn't do it with women too until there was a trans woman fucking scare.
Ashley, did you finish your point?
I just wanted to say that I think that it's something that we should at least think about in this type of conversation, that like intersex people tend to be very prevalent in the women's category compared to like the general population. They tend to be a lot more common.
Okay, so we'll go to debate board. He's been waiting. And then flow trace Dooby. Or sorry, Dooby flow trace. Whatever. We'll work it out.
Thanks, Prime. Just a couple of points. So I think Ash made an important concession earlier, which is aligned with what I was saying earlier, and that's the data is not conclusive in this space. But what she then parlayed that into was saying, I don't think that the percentage advantage that is retained by trans women after transitioning is unfair, and that is purely speculative opinion, and there is no science behind that part. The fact is that even after transition, there remains an advantage up to 3 years. Now, we can quibble about whether or not that advantage is significant enough to be important in performance, but we're seeing that advantage play itself out, whether it was those Connecticut high school track and field runners who absolutely destroyed their state championship in the 100 meters and 200 meters, or in the Leah Thomas case here, where after transition, she still retains an inherent physical advantage. It resulted in a less than 1% difference in performance that boosted her from 400th in the nation as a male participant to number 1 in the nation as a female participant. Okay.
Again,
I think also we have made these distinctions on testosterone in sports. There was the Olympic 800-meter runner, Semenya.
Caster Semenya, yeah, and
right?
that was a bad thing. That was the Olympics should not have done that.
Well, right, you would classify that as a bad thing. On the other hand, what we often hear are appeals to these organizations like the NCAA or the International Olympic Committee or the World Athletics Federation, who make rules that swing towards the interest of trans people and those who advocate for them. And yet here we have an instance of Caster Semenya being excluded from competition by one of these governing organizations. My point here being is we can't simply say, well, hey, the NCAA has allowed this to happen, so that must mean that the science is on our side. And I hear a lot of that in this conversation.
Oh, I know. That's why I argue, but no, I don't argue based on what an organization has said. Like, I don't argue based on like descriptive standards. I argue about like based on normatively. And again, on the Leah Thomas thing, you can look at the specific events that she competed in while she was male versus after she transitioned and she was placing first, third, fifth while she was playing against the men's.
Not national.
No. You can literally compare.
National first place and send it to us and we'll look at it.
Go ahead, Ash.
You can compare.
Find a national.
Leah Thomas. Hold on. Jesus Christ.
Ash, please.
I don't care that whoever that is.
Jesus.
Oh my God. I want Ash to be able to finish her sentence, and then
you can compare Leah Thomas performing in the exact same event in 2019, Penn versus Villanova. She got first, competing in the men's. Penn versus Villanova in 2021, competing in the women's. She also got first. This is not she's placing similar. For example, in the NCAA championship, she got 2 firsts, but she also placed 8th in one. She placed 4th in another. She placed 5th in another. She has been among the top swimmers when she in the competitions that she's competed in when she was male and after she had transitioned.
But which one was she nationally first in? I asked you that question a lot of times.
Nationally, oh my God.
Nationally, what was she first in? Can you give me an example where she was competing as a man and nationally first?
Yeah, people tend to get again, I don't know what the problem is. It's okay for a trans woman to get first in a league.
No, that's not. We didn't say whether it's okay. Can you answer the question? Can you answer the question on was this person nationally first when they were competing as a man? Can you answer that question? Is the answer yes or no?
No, I don't understand how that's relevant.
So it's not comparable. It's not comparable.
Yeah, well, what do you mean it's not comparable? Because what you're putting forward, Ash, is that she was like a top male swimmer, right? Yes. And so when she became a woman and went through the transition, it makes sense that she'd still be very competitive as a woman, right? But if we look at her history, I posted her history going back to 2016.
Yeah, I'm looking at her history right now.
Lots of 7th place finishes, 8th place, 4th place, 3rd place, and when I broke one of these down earlier, right? I broke down the Ivy League championships as a male versus Ivy League championships as a woman, right? And the time spread right, is she was like like 3 seconds behind the first place in that year. And the third person was like 2 seconds behind her, but she became a woman, right? That she's like almost 10 seconds ahead of the next competitor, right? It's not
No,
comparable.
it was 6 seconds, and it is comparable.
How is this comparable?
I'm literally looking at the specific meets. She was someone who placed first often and in the exact same
Where?
events.
Wait, Ash, this
Penn
isn't
versus Vin-
this isn't comparable. So like for example, because like I don't have a sports background, I have a music background mostly,
No,
and
I have a sports
engineering
background.
So we wouldn't compare someone getting first chair in all county to someone getting first chair in all states, right?
No, I know. I'm comparing this exact same event. Penn versus Villanova, first place, competing in the men's category in
Doesn't make
2019.
sense to compare
Penn
them.
versus Villanova, 2021, competing in the women's category, first place.
Compare the times. Yeah, why are we
Placing doesn't matter.
Sure.
Yeah, we
Just
don't
look
care
at
about
the
the place.
times. Like this is
Hey.
so simple. It's swimming.
So-
You compare the times to the
Wait,
national times.
You wouldn't
It's
do that if you want to push this narrative that what this person is now and what they were before is comparable. You only can make nonsense points to act like this person is competing at the same level. That's why this is happening. That's why Ash is wasting our fucking time.
I don't
Ash, I
understand.
don't understand why you don't understand.
Oh, hey, let me jump in here for a second. So I'm sympathetic to Ash's point here in one narrow way, and that is one. Look, if Leah Thomas, when she was competing on the Penn men's team, was posting those times while in the midst of transitioning, Ash is saying that the transition process was already holding back those times, and which would make Leah, participating as a man, appear less.
Some of these are before that period, though.
Least appears less faster, if you will, amongst the men she was competing with. I don't know if that's really the case, though. I'm curious now if Leah Thompson competed as a man.
Leah started transitioning in 2018.
Before
transition. That person goes back to 2016, and she saw shit times.
Yes, exactly. That we have times from well before the transition that started. That's our point.
So debate. Sorry. Debate. Are you done? And then I want to make sure Dooby's done, and then I want to get flow trace. Okay. Then Dooby then.
Yeah. So I think that if we're being honest, like a league without a sex restriction, it would just be dominated by men anyway, right? Because trans men don't have the advantage of male puberty, and trans women would be like kneecapped by HRT a lot of the time.
Some trans
so that
men.
idea, what seems like dead in the water, right? So, then the idea of like breaking sports leagues down by like income and mental health conditions seems like laughable on its face. I think. I hope. It seems so little yeah. So it seems a lot more reasonable to me, right? Given that what we're talking about here is like a very small percentage of the population, trans people generally, then an even smaller percentage of that group, right? Trans people who are interested in like professional sports, and we have we already there are some conditions that you could have, mental health conditions, physical health conditions, where if you have this thing, you are excluded from sports. Right, because of the medication you have to take, because of things you have to do, because of what it might do to your body. It seems way more reasonable for before we get to the point where we're talking about having like a depressed person league, to just say that, hey, if you're trans, unfortunately, this is a condition that if you have this, you just can't compete in professional sports. Unfortunately, this is the case for tons of conditions. Right? It seems like we're bending over backwards and potentially fucking over like cis women who've dedicated their lives to this sport to accommodate a very small group of people.
Trans women have also dedicated their lives to these sports. I don't understand why we're okay with throwing trans women under the bus who are equally as dedicated as cis women, because what if a trans woman beats a cis woman?
Okay, wait. So here's a question for Ash, because I'm so curious, right?
Yeah.
Does it not bother you that we don't see any of this on the trans men side?
No, we do see people on the trans men side.
No, hold on.
Actually, no, I'll actually pull up a list. I have a list because I saw you show
wait, hold on. Because I've been wait, hold on. I've been given these lists before. Okay, there are 2 athletes that are always brought up. One has like 1 actual recorded like fighting match, and the other person is like an Olympic race walker. So. Are there any trans men that are competing in sports that people have heard of or care about, like swimming or some combat sport or like basketball or like something that like people actually care about? Or is it just going to be these like really weird like frisbee golf things? Because at that point, does it ever bother you, or do you ever worry like, okay, well, fuck, maybe like why don't we see trans men doing as well as trans women seem to be doing if all the biological advantages are just a wash at the end of the day anyway?
Do you think there might be sociological reasons that would discourage trans men from competing in sports?
As many as that would discourage trans women. In fact, my guess would be that there's probably more pressure against trans women than trans men, because trans men for
but trans men broadly are going to have grown up being pressured to do sports, right?
Trans women, you mean?
Hold on.
Sorry, trans women.
No amount of social pressure is eliminating these sex differences. That's just absolutely not the case.
That's not the question. Is whether they can
I do want to let
no response to the question.
I do.
Can we hear Ash list the person? I just want to know who they are.
Yeah, well, hold on.
Get that list and then quickly, because I got to move on.
Well, I have two responses. The first one is that we don't actually see a lot of trans women dominating and stuff. We've only had trans women have been allowed in the Olympics since 2004. We've literally only seen one trans woman ever, and she came last place. Second of all, sure, I have a list right here. Chris Mosier, I can't even pronounce her last name. Accomplished triathlete. Yep, Team USA. Mac Beggs has been like fucking dominating.
I thought it was pretty interesting earlier, the trans man thing. Why are we always talking about trans women? So I looked up some of these people, right? Some of these like trans male athletes or trans men athletes. And I'm just going to go through a few of them for you guys, okay? So there's Cayes, played 3 seasons as a woman, came out as a man, and this was basketball, by the way. Came out as a man and retired from college basketball 7 months later. Never competed on the men's team. Mac Beggs, who's been repeatedly saying that Mac Beggs is dominating in men's wrestling. Right?
Oh no, women's wrestling. He's dominating women's wrestling because he's a trans man who they haven't let.
So let me break that down. So yeah, Mac Beggs did dominate in women's high school wrestling, with like a 32-0 record while taking synthetic testosterone, which is a little bit iffy, I think. Mac also competed in a couple high school boys tournaments where he got 3rd place in a 3-person bracket in one, and a 3rd and a 6-person bracket in the 2nd. He joined the men's college wrestling team in 2018. Didn't compete in 2018 to 2019 due to surgery, and hasn't been active in college level men's wrestling since that I've been able to find anywhere. Mm-hmm. Now there's Keelan Godsey, set 2 records in women's hammer throw at the college level while taking synthetic testosterone, and then attempted to qualify for the Olympics in 2008. Got 8th place. We're competing with men. Did it again in 2011. Got 5th place. Did it again in 2012. 5th place again. Right. So like it seems like this really doesn't. We talk about trans women because that's where the issue is, right? Trans men do not compete.
Competing to enter the Olympics, that's huge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
again, compared to other Olympic level male men, I'm not saying that she's not a great athlete.
There's only one trans woman in the Olympics.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not saying that he's not a great athlete, right? Of course he is. Right? This person's dedicated their life to this sport, right? So I'm not saying they're just like a shit athlete, but I'm saying compared to like biological men at the same level, they're not competitive.
Mac Beggs has been like fucking dominating. Patricio Manuel is a pro boxer qualified for the 2012 Olympic trials.
Can you send us? Hold on, wait.
Wait, there's one person that just qualified for the 2012 Olympic trials. This is what I'm talking about, right?
This is what we want.
Sure.
We want. Hold
on.
Wait, we want to give you easy parameters. We want to find one person that has something equivalent to what Leah Thomas is doing. That's all we're asking for. That's it.
Sure.
Not a qualification, somebody that's either breaking records or serially winning awards or like anything like that. That's all we want.
Give me 1 second.
I do think that generally when we divert these conversations to, or when we talk about trans men in these types of conversations, I do think that we do have to acknowledge that like there's a large group of people that are TERFs or like generally pushing against trans women, and trans women is where a lot of the fear mongering of this type of stuff comes from.
Well, I think
that just isn't the case for trans men. Now, I agree with you.
That would mean that it's more socially acceptable for trans men, so we should see.
I'm not denying this.
Trans
I'm
men
just also
flourishing.
saying that why we tend to talk about trans women in these conversations is because that's where the fear mongering tends to attack.
No, it's because that's where the biological advantage is.
Yeah, because I think if we think about trans men, right? I don't think trans men are going to be somebody that's gone through puberty as a woman that is now just taking hormones and wants to compete with men, with cis men. that's a really tough sell. Like you've got to overcome a lot
and
there.
I'm just saying that like why these conversations also don't tend to go there. A large part of that is that the fear mongering tends to be about trans.
We can say that, but like if I'm going to be as conspiracy driven as you guys were about conservatives, I would say that the reason why the conversations don't go there.
What conspiracy?
The conspiracy that people bring up trans women because they hate trans people, and this is the easiest
You
argument they have to
don't, you don't think anybody, you don't think anybody's ever done that? It's like that's a conspiracy now.
It doesn't matter. What I'm saying,
it's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. It doesn't matter anymore, though.
I'm not even
It
saying that I
matters
would
when
do
it's a
that. I'm not
conspiracy.
even saying I would do that, but I'm saying that if I was to do that, then I would say the reason why nobody talks about trans men is because it kind of like destroys this entire argument. Because any reasonable person would know that like a trans man is probably never going to be competitive with elite.
So there was no
cisgender
conspiracy.
male
You're completely moving away from this claim that somebody was being conspiratorial, and you're just like backing away from it entirely. No, the point is like this. Your point flew under the radar. Your point is that bad. You have no way to support this argument.
Okay,
It's not an argument. I'm just saying that
Nobody
I
is
feel like
saying
the
you're
reason
bad.
why the reason why trans men aren't addressed is because it's like pretty strikingly obvious that trans men aren't competitive with cis men, and I think that's why.
That's cool, but nobody was on here being conspiratorial about conservatives, right?
Wait, who?
Nobody was on here being conspiratorial about conservatives.
Who the fuck asked you?
Big epic, bro.
But, okay, let's go to Flow Traces. Been waiting quite patiently.
Look how proud he is of himself.
He lost meme.
Sorry,
it's imposter sus. Holy shit.
What was the problem?
Is that person well?
Oh, I don't. Sorry, buddy. Let's go to Flow Traces. Been waiting like extremely patiently. Thank you for being classy along with the rest of these fucking degenerates.
You know what? Thank you, Prime. I guess there are two things I want to go over. The first being on regards to Lita Chandler. I'm not sure if I'm getting that name right. I apologize if I'm not. I would first like to clarify if we're specifically bringing up the idea that her transitioning was sort of artificially deflating her numbers, and that then if you sort of reverse that deflation, that these numbers are actually a lot better. I think you need to be a lot more intimately knowledgeable on what the actual transition process is, because I'm not aware. Do we know exactly what she was doing in terms of her transition at each of the points that we're then drawing these data points in terms of her numbers of SNMs? And then just more fundamentally, I feel like when we're looking at this result in this competition at this event in a specific period of time versus this other time in a different event at a different specific point in time, I feel like unless you're intimately familiar with sort of collegiate level swimming, I feel like there's a real risk here of drawing wrong conclusions from a variety of numbers. Like it feels like borderline like telling my GF like, oh, I have like 8 CS per minute, so I actually should be in diamond when I'm hard sex over. So I feel like that it's really hard to draw these kinds of conclusions if the data is as muddied as it seems to be. But I think the more fundamental issue that we're having in this conversation that wasn't addressed, and I think Ash sort of touched on it last time she spoke, is that it's not just that we care about a difference in an advantage, but it's also why that advantage exists. I think that most people here, except maybe GSU, would agree that if if there was a cis woman who was competing at the level that Lita Thomas is competing at, I think most people would not have a problem with that. Or similarly, if someone was using steroids and the quantified gain they got was smaller than the difference between non-doping athletes, that suddenly wouldn't be okay. So I guess what I'd like to hear, particularly from like the GSU Destiny camp, is what is it about the choice to transition implicates the difference that trans women are granted that's different between than just the differences that sort of randomly occur between normal cis people?
Because we've decided that we want to create a protected space for women to perform athletic events in. That's what we have. We've created women's sports as a protected space for women. We've decided that that's the differentiator. Not a particular hormone level, not a particular, just that sex differentiation. If we find a way for somebody to train for some of the most important years of their life athletically as the other sex, and then come over and compete now in a sex protected league, that's where the issue comes from. That's why people feel like it's not fair.
I guess then my question would be, and I just want to be very clear, I'm not trying to say you're transphobic, but I feel like that argument comes sort of dangerously close to being transphobic when you're saying that we want these leagues to exist to protect women. Well, I think that you would certainly agree, and most everyone here is going to agree that trans women are women. So it feels like you're sort of drawing a distinction. Well, really, we want to protect cis women.
Yeah, so okay, firstly, the statement trans women are women is stupid. So let's get rid of that completely, okay? Because that's not what's at issue here, okay? Number two, women's sports were created to protect women. That's the only reason why women's sports exist, right? There is no other reason.
Well, yes, I would agree. It feels like, I guess the problem is that I feel like the word woman both sort of functions in the realm of sex and in the realm of gender. And when these two get muddied,
we're not talking about in the realm of, it's not, sports aren't about what you identify as, right? That's not
yes.
how we've drawn the distinction, right?
So
if we have a protected space for women, then I mean, if we found a way, kind of like, I don't want to call it a loophole.
Maybe-
because that
maybe
seems a little bit weird, but,
females-
like,
Yeah,
if
well,
you
see,
have
that's
a
where-
way, if you have a way for somebody to train as the opposite sex for a large amount of their life, and arguably the most important training years of their life, and then switch over and then compete in the other sex category, people are going to feel like that's cheating or like that's wrong or somehow they've got an advantage they shouldn't have.
Destiny, if you don't, you should use female because you'll get endlessly strawman online if you say women that way. I would use
what we should say is
But
AFAB or AMAB would probably
that's
be the better.
That's an intuitive
God.
argument. Like people are gonna intuitively think that that's unfair, but that doesn't actually like make it unfair. There's
Well,
a
but
difference
it
between
does
things
make
being
it
actual.
unfair.
Well, no. There's a difference between things being unfair, and then things seeming unfair. Trans women in women's sports, I understand that's seeming unfair, but when it comes to the alternatives, it is just the fairest solution to let trans women compete in women's sports, especially considering there's one, very few of them, two,
That doesn't
very
make it
few.
fair.
Well,
It doesn't make it
hold
fair.
on. So you are either okay with just telling a bunch of athletes who have trained their entire life, this is their professional athletes, this is what they care about, that they're just not allowed to participate in.
Wait, nobody said
we
they
already
can't compete.
Hold on, but
Nobody
wait,
has said
wait,
that.
Hold on.
I said that.
Hold on. I've said
We do that all the time for all athletes.
No, hold on.
But wait,
No,
but because
so
we do that
your
currently for tons of mental and physical health issues. that people
But
have.
your category, but there's no. But we do that with health issues because that negatively affects someone's health. You're just effectively telling trans women. No, but
We're not saying
trans
they can't.
women are not
Yes,
going to
we can
compete.
effectively tell trans women that they can't compete. That's
Hold on, you
fine.
actually-
Because
you-
on the
I
other,
know,
because
not only that-
on the other
No,
end
and
of that, on the other end, you're saying that you're essentially saying to all cis women that you're never going to win.
Because that's not true. That's not true. Because for example, people like Leah Thomas and those Connecticut track races that you mentioned earlier, and every other trans woman that's ever been an example has been beaten by cis women. Leah Thomas literally placed 4th and 8th and 5th.
Okay, here's a question.
The very event that we're talking about.
So here's a question
now.
I want to hold you to. Wait. Here's a question I want to hold you to right now. Okay.
Yeah.
If in the next 3 years,
Mhm.
3 trans women are rank 1 finishers on a national level, do you think that represents a problem? Would you admit at that point that
Nope, that's not a problem. No, that's not a problem.
Okay, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, there's
No, hold on.
But you could make a counter argument
I
that
can
is
tell
the
you why it's
problem.
not a problem. No, I can tell you why it's not a
Prime,
problem.
I'd like to address Dooby's issues earlier.
Hold on. Hey, Ash, can I ask you one question before we
Sure,
move
yeah,
on from this?
absolutely.
So what Destiny was really asking you, and this is what I've asked a lot of people in these conversations, is there a limit in which you would say that this is unfair to cisgender women? What would that look like to you? What would have to happen in sports for you to say, oh, yeah, maybe this shit isn't fair? Is
Sure,
there
yeah.
any case?
Yeah, sure. So there'll be a couple of cases. For example, allowing trans women who have not gone under any gender affirming care to compete in
No,
in
I'm
cis
talking
female
about,
leagues.
no.
I think that-
Presuppose that we're talking about a world where there's 1 year HRT or whatever the standard is right now.
Okay. So I guess you're telling me like how many trans women in competing in cis female leagues is too much? Well, I mean, if you're seeing a large disproportionate number of trans women taking up the top spots compared to cis women, I guess that you would say that it's unfair, but that'd be extremely hard to the scenario of that is really, really outlandish because again, when it comes to when we're talking about athletes.
Wait, I'm not asking. I'm not asking how
I'm confused
likely
about
you
your
think
question.
this is. I'm not asking how likely do you think it is to happen. I'm asking if I could if
I
we
was
brought you a
describing the
sheet of
situation.
paper. I know, but I don't want to care about. I don't care about how likely you think it is.
No, I'm
to
already
happen.
past the likely stuff. I was describing the situation.
No, you were talking about it's outlandish. And
She was
it's
describing the
unlikely.
situation. Yes,
I was already past that. I was past that.
So
like spazzing out every 30 seconds.
Ash, finish the point, and then I want to hear get to Striker, who hasn't had a chance to say much, and then Spirit Toby, and then Dooby, and Ashley, because I know she has something else to say. She's not. You know what I'm saying, and then Flow Trace.
Okay, so if let's just say that like 1% of women are like trans women, and so if we start seeing like 5 or 10% of all records and all the top places and like 15% of all the like the top rankings be occupied by trans women, I think then that would call for some like review, and that would be unfair. But we don't we don't see that, and I don't think that we will see that. And if we do, I would say that we would have to look at we'd have to review policies to make stuff like that fair.
Okay, moving on to the next person I named. Zach Striker. And debate board, I'll get you at the end of the list.
No problem.
So I want to touch on the saying that perception doesn't really matter. I think the perception of like trans people in sports, regardless of the actual reality of it, if the current reality of it maintains for the next 20 years, or if it goes into the hellscape scenario where cis women are not competitive whatsoever, it does matter to some extent because it's having an impact on legislation right now. So even if it's just a few people in like collegiate level or actual real competitive level sports making strides or whatever and breaking records, it's still affecting people in like high school and middle school and elementary school that might not be affected if collegiate level, we based off the evidence we had, didn't let trans people compete. So people in middle school and elementary school where sports aren't that competitive are now, and high school somewhat more competitive, but I personally don't really think is that big of a competitive thing compared to college or beyond, are now being screwed in a lot of Republican states. I remember seeing, I'm not sure if this was in college or if this was in high school, but there's a trans man who was forced to compete with women.
Yep, and he's dominating.
Was that high school or
Mike Beggs high school? He's he's literally
yeah.
dominating. He's the number one. He's the number one.
Yeah. So we're seeing that with high
in the
schoolers
state.
because of this issue where we're having niche people in college doing this. Now we have Republicans pushing through legislation that otherwise might not get passed and might not even go even crazy further to like Florida, where we're having general inspection crazy shit going on because we can't give on this one issue that is very, in my opinion, is super niche. Like, why focus so much of our energy in saying you're a transphobe if you don't support trans women in collegiate sports when we can focus on healthcare or when we can focus on healthcare or any other trans issue? No, I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive. I'm not saying
people as a transphobe because most people support it.
I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive. But me going out to talk to my local representative about trans sports versus me going to talk to my local representative about trans healthcare are vastly different in terms of how much trans people actually should care about them, right?
I mean, I agree. I talk to my representatives about trans healthcare like all the time. I'm very in contact, and you should talk to them about both because the Republicans in 2022 are like specifically running on trans sports and trans healthcare, and both of these are very, very bad. And should
okay, so sure we can say both of them are bad if we take that position.
Talk to them about both.
But if you only say you're like a normal person who doesn't have the time to do both. Because I'd say the normal person.
What do you mean you don't have the time to do both? Contacting your representative is literally an email or a phone call. And these are everyone has the time to write out an email to the representative. I'm very intimately familiar with how you actually contact with your representative and actually talk with them. It's a lot of people describe it as a lot of effort.
It's also about political capital though. So like in my state, Maryland just defeated. It was probably always going to get defeated, but we defeated an anti-transport bill. But who knows how in the future how that plays out, not necessarily just in Maryland, but other states that see, a liberal state is trying to harm women's sports or whatever whatever is the narrative the Republicans are going to give. And rather than focusing on bills that could be passed in Maryland, which there are better bills being passed too in Maryland for trans-related issues, but why spend the political capital on this issue that frankly doesn't impact that many trans people's lives when we can focus on healthcare and other issues that impact trans people's lives a lot more?
No, because they're not mutually exclusive. You can focus on more than one issue. They're not mutually exclusive.
No, it's not about being mutually exclusive. It's about political capital.
Yeah,
it's not about being mutually
there's
exclusive.
no political capital that's wasted by advocating for trans sports that can be allocated for trans healthcare that would move trans healthcare forward faster.
It definitely does because conservatives latch on to this issue. It's a losing issue. They latch onto this issue and then they
more. That's the biggest one. Trans healthcare for kids. That's the
biggest one.
But
they start with one and then they branch into them all.
Yes. Okay? So that's why you have to stop all of them. There is no political capital